Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lyds, and we're back for some more Thronebreaker in what might very well be our final video of the entire series, because we are now seemingly right in front of at least what I assume is the final main quest mission. Now, of course, this is technically just before the actual castle, but I assume that whatever we do here is going to basically be a non-stop mission that takes us into the final encounter of the entire game, because of course we've not yet confronted Dahi, and I imagine that we'll have some kind of confrontation with Willem as well. But, I mean, beyond that, I mean, we've looked at basically any and everything, and it seems as though we've done all there is to do at this stage. So, I mean, I think we're pretty much good to go here. We're on high morale. We have plenty of resources, so if we really wanted to, we could do some crafting stuff. Obviously, I'd not want to craft units unless we absolutely need to, because I want to try to finish our entire playthrough without having crafted any units at all. But if we wanted to get clever, yeah, sure. I mean, we could spend a little bit of resources in one of these places. Technically, if we wanted to craft more units, we probably would need to do some of these other research projects as well, and those do require investing a somewhat hefty sum of resources to make those happen. But you know, maybe we commit. Maybe we commit, and just to flex, when we have, what, maybe 20 steps left to take in the entire game, we choose to increase Meve's movement speed, because why not? Let's do it. Let's do it! Yeah, I mean, technically we still have some resources remaining, but, Nah, we are trying to finish this without having to use any resources on crafting stuff. So I think we're jumping in here, and I imagine, again, we might go straight into this confrontation with Dahi. Maybe there's some relatively small prequel to that encounter, but I'm assuming as soon as we initiate this encounter, we are doing all that stuff to the very end of the game, and I think we're ready. I mean, unless, I guess... Alright, sure, we'll make one final check to our deck, see if there's anything else we want to modify, because this might be our last chance to do that. Because we did experiment a little bit with adding Dragon's Dream as, I think, the most recent addition to our deck. After 5 turns, turn end, destroy 3 random enemies. And I'm sure we talked about how we were hoping to get value out of that, but I don't remember exactly what our strategy was. We also spoke, I think, about Tainted Ale and how that might have been a card we'd want to remove. If we did, then we probably want to remove the Stray's Infiltrators and maybe remove the Alchemists as well, because it's getting hard to squeeze all those different types of cards in together when some of them seem to have pretty distinct combos, like the Infiltrators and then the Skellige guys, of course, being their own thing. So that's really the greatest risk here, I think, is with this deck, I feel reasonably confident, unless, of course, Dahi has some nasty trick up his sleeve that makes him much more difficult than the other Nilfgaardian opponents that we've faced recently. But we have gone through Rivia having lost seemingly hero after hero, ally after ally. As long as we hold on to the Skellige guys, there's always a chance. So, well, fingers crossed that there isn't something that happens just before that final encounter that takes them away from us. If so, then we're going to have to be very careful. But let's jump in. Let's see. So, section end, confirmation. You are approaching an important moment in your journey. If you choose to continue, you will not be able to resume any unfinished activity in this area. See quest completed 9, puzzles completed 6. Standard battles. Oh, what? We have a what? Hold on. What? We missed a golden chest? Hold on just a second. Do we have any treasure maps that we've yet to get? And it seems as though all these are checked off, so we've done all of them. We were pretty thorough, I want to say, getting the chests, or at least exploring 4 chests.
11 minutes of aimless wandering later.
What about the estate?
9 infill minutes later.
First areas. Oh, hold on. Okay, that's promising that it suggests that we did not thoroughly search all these areas. Maybe it means we might have missed something important here. There was at least one area where, at the very beginning... at the very beginning, there was a chest you actually had to go backwards for. It is here. It is here. Okay, we'll pick up the other stuff that we missed. The additional resources. And then we will nab this chest. Okay, this better be amazing. It's probably going to be something for multiplayer Gwent that I'm not even going to be able to unlock. It is interesting. I've definitely never seen anyone use that in multiplayer Gwent. Oh. It's very different. Kind of an interesting, unique way to frame your profile picture. But we're done. We're done with all that stuff. We have found that final treasure chest, which I really thought was just going to haunt us for all of eternity. So thank you for your patience as I meandered about and ultimately did, thankfully, find it. Also, thankfully, there's a fast travel spot right next to the point of no return. So I believe we should now see that we are good to go here. It doesn't tell us out of how many for quests completed or puzzles or standard battles, any of that stuff, but presumably we've done all that. And now, thankfully, all the chests found as well. So it seems as though at this point we can pretty safely say we have done basically everything that there is to do in Thronebreaker outside of this final encounter or encounters. So, all right, let's jump in. I think we're ready.
The castle of Rivia now loomed before the Lyrians. Water surrounded it on three sides, and dual defensive walls studded with podgy turrets completed its perimeter. It was famously difficult to take and had changed hands only once, a few months before, when traitors opened its gates to the Nilfgaardians.
Okay.
Foreign banners waved upon the walls. The Golden Sun and General Epdahi's crest on Rivia's walls. The walls of home.
That will not do.
There was somber silence among the troops, the glee and pride of many triumphs suddenly gone. For each knew if the Queen ordered an assault, most would lie dead by sunrise.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of difficult encounters that we came into understanding that we were probably going to lose a lot of the soldiers, but that doesn't make it any easier for them.
Your Majesty,
Began Reynard in a reassuring tone.
we needn't strike quickly. We've time on our side. To
do?
prepare would be wise. 2 months, I wager. Perfectly enough.
Oh, wow.
We stop supplies from getting through. They'll capitulate, I've little doubt. Or at worst, be too weak to defend the fortress.
Reynard's reasoning was sound. There was no need for urgency. Meve had the upper hand for the first time in this war.
I mean, besides the whole part where they have a massive fortification that they're using. So in that sense, they absolutely have the upper hand. But yeah, we can basically lay siege to our own castle, at least to a certain extent. Okay. So I think, though, what this is saying is we saw this in at least one other area before the final encounter, or one of the major encounters. It might have even been in Ongren for the encounter against Caldwell. Basically, this just seems like it's another chance, a second warning to say to the player, hey, if you aren't ready, this is a really important encounter, and in this case, the final encounter, or penultimate encounter, maybe. This is your last chance to get out and do whatever other preparation you need. It doesn't actually have any narrative implications, I don't think. But I mean, maybe we try and just confirm that. Let's do that, just to be absolutely certain, because obviously Reynard is making the case that we ought to hold off for the time being, and so if there are any actual consequences for holding off, then maybe it is worth doing this, because it might be beneficial.
Let Epdahi wait.
Said Meve, her eyes trained on the citadel.
Let him watch from those walls as we reclaim our realm, village by village, town by town. Follow me.
Meve turned her back to the castle, eager to take the fight elsewhere.
Okay, but I assume we're going to be able to just turn right around and begin this fight. Yeah, okay, so confirmation, it seems like that's exactly what this is. It's just a second warning that, hey, this is going to be the point of no return. We might need to skip through those conversations.
Meve had returned to the foot of Rivia Castle.
Well, let's see.
Tense and silent, her troops awaited her command.
Okay. No, just... we played it safe. We made sure. Want to get this right. Want to get this right at the end. So I think we're ready lay siege, cut off the castle. I mean, I guess this is actually the thing that Raynor was describing anyway. It's not as if this was a, no, just rush straight in immediately and forget about the whole suggestion that Raynor was proposing.
These invaders have grown fond of Rivia Castle,
said Meve.
so let them stay and rot. Reynard, erect road barricades and guard posts between city and citadel. Gascon, seize all boats, barges, anything that floats. Stop anything from entering from the lake. Move!
Soon, Rivia Castle stood isolated from the world outside its walls. All roads leading to it were blocked, impassable. Fishing boats, a cordon, embraced the fortress on Loch Escalot. The lanterns on their bows glowed like fireflies in summer.
Okay, so it sounds like perhaps our siege was relatively successful.
Then, an emissary from the castle brought a message for the Queen. General Epdahi wished to meet, face to face, and half the way between the citadel and the Lyrian camp.
Well, well, some general.
Smirked Gascon.
We've barely snapped the trap shut, yet he's already shaking in his knickers.
Yeah, I mean, we have his attention, but by no means do I think that, he's about to just let us take the castle. If anything, this might even be some kind of trick he's about to play on us, some other way he's planning to regain the upper hand. Is he gonna, stab us in the back or reveal that someone else on our team has been a traitor all along?
Meve proceeded to the meeting point without delay. A lone rider soon appeared on the horizon. He came adorned in rich black robes, their golden trim shimmering in stray sunbeams. She'd seen him before, in Edirn, through the megascope.
It is Dahi. Yes, we've really only spoken to him once through the megascope, right? Have we ever spoken to him directly outside of that? I mean, I'm sure we've read letters from him and all that, but okay. Also, if he's truly here by himself, like, I know it's not exactly the honorable thing to do, but if he didn't bring a single guard, I mean, can we just, boop, pop him in the head with an arrow or two and call it a day, and suddenly, I mean, sure, that doesn't mean that we immediately win the fight, but if we were to take out their leader, then that would do a lot to help us gain another pretty huge advantage in this upcoming fight, but I doubt that's going to happen.
You came as I requested. Good. Very good.
Oh, and is his sigil, is that supposed to be a weasel or a fox? I mean, either way, that is pretty representative of his personality. I like that a lot. That's a nice little touch, because he is definitely very sneaky and conniving and what have you.
I couldn't possibly refuse such a courteous invitation, especially as compared to your previous missive. The art of diplomacy, you've improved your grasp.
Your realm fell quickly. I expended little strength in seizing it. This left me much time to study.
Sure, buddy.
But please, we must set aside this bitterness. I'd like to formally welcome you to Rivia, dear Queen.
Thanks, but no thanks.
I see you've readily adopted the role of gracious host in my home.
Yeah, that's not gonna fly.
In point of fact, I've grown fond of the castle. Fortifications impressive, atypical of the north. Not so your brave soldiers, whom we shall pick off like ducks. I pity them, in fact.
We'll see about that.
Dry your eyes, General. Rest easy. I've no plans for a quick assault. I shall first wait to hear the rumbling in your bellies.
Okay.
Remarkable. You truly believe you can win this war?
I mean, talking back about the strategy that Raynor in particular proposed, the whole siege the castle thing, I mean, yes, that is, historically, one of the most effective ways to attack a fortification that is very strong, because otherwise your opponents would have a huge advantage over you. The thing is that, in truth, if we're being extremely nitpicky, we know that the Nilfgaardians have a humongous army. Sure, they have, I'm sure, many, many soldiers in the castle itself. However, it's not as if they're defenseless outside of the castle, they definitely still have many regiments remaining. Sure, we've gotten rid of some of them, but basically, if, say, the siege were to go on for a month or two, as Reynard was proposing, then eventually you would think the Nilfgaardians would find a way to get some other troops to circle back over to the castle and basically flank us, and then we'd be toast. So that's, if I were the Nilfgaardians, the way that I'd approach the situation. How would they get the message to those other regiments when we're trying to prevent any messages from coming in or out of Rivia Castle while the Nilfgaardians are here? That's a different question, but we'll see.
I've not been in the north long, but have discovered something all the same. You don't grasp complex ideas. You know Nilfgaard is large, but your minds don't fathom its enormity.
We'll see about that.
You see, for every army you defeat, another will come to take its place. One larger and better equipped than the one before. Even now, as we so pleasantly chat, Army Group East is en route to lift your siege.
Exactly. Okay, so that's exactly what I was saying. Basically, they could counter our siege by sending in another army to sneak up behind us, and we'd be trapped against the lake that we've nowhere to go. We'd be surrounded, and we would probably be completely routed by this other army.
Due to arrive tomorrow.
Oh.
And do you know what will happen when they do? They will crush you against your own castle's walls, like the maddening flea you are.
So in this one, this statement, he actually has a very good argument. That is probably very likely to be the case in an actual real-life situation. Okay, but let's see. So get to the point, what do you want? Should not be insulted nor intimidated. Wow, yourself. Okay. I mean, not really sure much is going to change based on what we go with here. It's more so just how polite or impolite do we want to be? Polite. I guess middle ground. Rude. Maybe we'll keep things relatively cordial here.
A charming analogy, but get to the point. Why'd you ask for this meeting?
For this very reason. I wish to see you with my own eyes.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
They did not see enough in Edirn? Are you such an admirer of feminine beauty?
There you go, Meve.
You flatter yourself. No, in you, I see an animal. Game. Prey. And as the hunt's due to start soon, I needed a more detailed image of the beast I'll be looking for.
I don't know about that.
You? On a hunt? Those delicate hands have never held spear or bow. Nout sharper than a letter opener, I wager.
Hey.
Tomorrow you will not be on a hunt. Tomorrow you will be at war. You best pray to all your gods you don't find me.
And I mean, those are pretty harsh words for someone who's, remember, a general. Yes, he's an aristocrat, perhaps more so really than a general. He's a strategist, for sure, but maybe not so much someone who is doing a lot of the fighting himself.
Without awaiting a response from General Ep Dahi, Meve pivoted and turned toward camp. Her pace was quick, despite a heavy heart.
Oh, what? Okay, this is our first time in our own camp. At least in this way, walking around with Meve. That's kind of cool. Okay. We chat with our troops before the final fight. Anything else here for us to do other than just explore? Looks like a dwarf. That guy's wearing Lyrian/Rivian armor. This guy looks like he's wearing Edirnian armor. So that is kind of cool that there's that little touch where it's not just, copy-pasting everything. What's the skeleton guys? That's patricide. So that makes it feel a little more real. Best boy. A little way to check in with all of our heroes, our squad mates, our allies, our friends before we get started. Wait. The other ones were Lyrian colors, I think. These are Rivian colors, because I recognize this from The Witcher 3, when Geralt can represent Rivia. Yes, like that's Lyria. Not entirely sure who these guys are. Maybe they're from Angren? It looks like we can actually talk with Patricide, who's the first person we've been able to chat with thus far.
Dare sign the retreat, got it? My axe craves blood, Nilfgaardian blood.
Okay. Good, because we need him. And all the other Skellige dudes.
Gonna be one hell of a night. Ah! Ah! Ah!
And it sounds like he's up for it.
Gonna be one hell of a night. Ah! Ah! Ah!
So maybe we can rest assured that we are not at risk of losing the Skellige guys at the very last moment. Fingers crossed, at least. Okay, it doesn't look like there's anywhere else we can go on that end, but maybe further over here. I assume, surely, people like Reynard and Gascon. I would argue the most important of our allies. I would assume we get to chat with them. No? Well, this seems to be the way. Is there a map? Or, oh, no, not like this. Is there a map of this specific area? No, that's, well... That's the other way that we're usually looking at all this stuff. I guess there's one last chance to do any crafting if you really wanted to. Yeah, no, there's no map at all. There's no map at all. I mean, just kind of curious if it's going to show us a unique place for our encampment here. See all the tents. I'm curious if... So obviously, as I was saying, some of the stuff that we see here must adapt to the decisions that we made over the course of our playthrough. Like, if you just never had the Skellige guys join you, then presumably Patricide would not show up there. And we did get the smallest possible amount of dwarves, so I don't know if... we still seemingly had a dwarf show up from Hockham, so I don't know if that changes at all. But, you know, things like upgrading the size of our camp with the resources that we invested. Does that affect the way that this looks here? I have no idea. Maybe not. This... that might even be Gascon, or some of the strays at the very least. And this seems to be the place where we are needing to go. So, nice little touch there. Oh, and look at how close we are to the castle.
Meve's closest advisors already awaited her in the
There we
command
go.
tent. In a few brief words, the Queen gave a report of the meeting, only with great effort masking the quavering in her voice.
An army, an immense one, approaches from the west. If we meet in open battle, we stand not a chance.
I definitely agreed with Reynard on that one. That's almost certainly true.
Damn it. Why did no one warn me?
I mean, let's be honest, it's pretty obvious that was going to end up happening. I mean, I did kind of predict it was going to happen before the general even told us.
Our scouts were discovered, captured. It must be that.
We must flee. Not at all heroic, I admit, but sure as hell better than being trampled into the dirt.
Flee from the army that is pursuing us here. Oh, and Reynard was saying the reason why we didn't learn of the other army coming to track us down was because our scouts got captured. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, so can we reposition ourselves somehow very quickly here, while at the same time not completely squandering our attempt to attack the castle? Or do we just delay indefinitely and go for, instead of a siege, a surprise strike at some point in the distant future when they least expect it?
Easily said, but for a problem. Our force is chiefly infantry. The army that draws near includes cavalry, several regiments. We cannot hope to escape them. We cannot hope to hide.
Okay, that's not good news.
What do you advise?
We've two options. Capitulate.
Yes.
Out of the question.
Or take the castle. Tonight.
Oh. All right then. Madness, impossible? Impossible? What of the cost? I mean, it sounds like Meve is basically making this decision for us, saying that we've no choice but to do it.
Suppose for a moment it's possible. Tell me how and at what cost. Are we to scale a mountain of comrades' corpses to reach the top of the wall? I know we're at war and many die, but to command our troops to take that citadel is to condemn them to certain death.
Unless we some extremely clever trick up our own sleeves.
Rivia's walls are unassailable, I fully agree. But there's more than one way to take any fort, and this fort too.
Okay. Any tips or tricks you have, Reynard?
I think I like where this is going.
Or Gascon?
I know this citadel like no one else. I know its one potential weakness, the boat landing.
I did notice that when it was showing us the brief picture there, is that yes, there are some really big walls, but there's a dock, a pier, whatever you want to call it, where you would think we might be able to sneak in without having to break through the wall to get there.
Wait, that narrowest of piers between the two turrets? The one where the fishermen would land?
Yes.
The same. As I'm sure you recall, Your Grace, at that narrow pier's end stands a narrow door leading straight into the fortress. A small detachment could approach unnoticed, overwhelm any sentries, and get inside.
Okay.
What then?
And that's still a small force. Not enough to take over the entire castle.
They would need to pass through the fort to the winch in the guardhouse. Open the gate for the rest of the force.
Okay. This sounds like the type of thing that Gascon and the Strays might specialize in.
Reynard, I'll be honest. This sounds right mad.
Okay, and that means something coming from Gascon then. If he's supposed to be the specialist, then we kind of need his buy-in.
Perhaps. But as options go, we have it alone.
And I'm to choose to send folk there? Most certainly to die.
You needn't choose anyone, for I volunteer, and will take only those willing to do the very same.
I mean, noble, without a doubt. On the other hand, I mean, yes, Reynard is the most knowledgeable of the castle, but it still feels like the skill set required here to infiltrate, that's not so much what he does as much as it is what Gascon and the Strays do. So it still feels like, is Reynard going to lead a group of Strays? Is Reynard going to go with Gascon and a group of Strays? I don't know.
Bloody wretched plan.
All right, Gascon, any ideas?
Do you?
Of course. I'll go instead.
Okay, now we might need to choose between them, and for all those reasons, I'm probably still leaning Gascon, the downside being that he, again, does not understand the layout of the castle nearly as well as Reynard does.
Beg your pardon? I don't.
Face it, Reynard, you couldn't sneak past a corpse.
Yeah.
Sound like a bloody tambourine in that armor.
Yep.
Apart from which, you're Meve's right hand. So you ought to be by her side when the fighting starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think not only is Reynard not going to be great at infiltrating, he also is primarily a soldier and a leader, and so he is definitely someone we would want helping us in the melee that ensues. I think that's where he's most helpful. Reynard will lead the assault on the boat landing? No, I think Gascon is right. I think he is the man for the task. Now, I think we need to understand here that whoever we do send there, as Reynard was saying, it is almost certain that most, if not all, the people who go in there are going to die. So it is a task that perhaps Gascon and some Strays may never come back from. And, I mean, Gascon obviously is a really important character, really important ally to us, but it's either him or it's Reynard. And I think it has to be Gascon.
Firstly, Reynard, I'm grateful. Well done, my friend.
Thank you, Your Grace.
But
truth be told, I did indeed hear you walking to the tent from the other side of camp.
and maybe it is that just because Gascon has a more natural skill set for this type of operation, maybe he can escape unscathed, or at least relatively unscathed. But, you know, if there is a reason why Gascon would fail, I assume it would be that he doesn't have as good an understanding of the layout of the castle.
And yes, you know Rivia Castle better than anyone else, but the assault must transpire silently. Gascon will lead the force.
But even if that is the case, I still think... So from that perspective, you know, who's the better person to infiltrate? I guess you could make the case that maybe Reynard could still do a decent job. But if we're talking about, okay, on the other side of the battle, for the people who are directly partaking of the primary fight once the gate comes down, I think it's definitely clear that Reynard would be better in that situation than Gascon. So at least from that standpoint, I think it is definitely this route, this choice that I think is best.
Understood, Your Grace.
Cheers, Meve. I'll try not to disappoint.
You won't, I'm sure. Godspeed you on your way, and please, try your damnedest not to die.
That too.
Gascon hand-picked his men, those most adept with daggers, not swords.
Okay.
Noiselessly, they glided through the dark toward the castle, the light of its lanterns blurred by the evening mist.
Okay, is that stealthy enough?
Meve watched anxiously as the boats glided away, her heart pounding in her ears. All depended on this mission. The fate of her realms, perhaps all the North, the lives of her troops, and her own. Now there was naught she could do but wait.
Good luck.
She whispered, gazing at the fortress walls, cloaked by the dark that seemed to surround all now.
Oh man, in case there is any doubt about the stakes, there you have it. And I do wonder if this is just going to be us crossing our fingers and hoping that Gascon can do his thing, or are we going to have basically a 2-round encounter, perhaps even more than that. First, we'll have Gascon doing his thing in the castle, infiltrating. Then afterward, if we succeed, we will have the fight more directly with the ground forces, with Meve, Reynard, and the rest of our army. And who knows what happens after that? Maybe there's something even beyond that.
The Lyrians prepared for battle, their silence absolute, in darkness, illuminated only by the pale light of the moon.
Intense.
Meve was restless. She paced nervously in a circular pattern, awaiting the signal they'd agreed upon.
Blast, it's taking long. Much, much too long.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
Finally, a torch's faint glow appeared atop the towering walls. It disappeared, then glowed again, and one more time around. Meve leapt in the air, and as she did so, barely stifled a cry of utter joy.
They made it. It worked.
Okay, but what about the gate itself? They're in, but were they able to get the gate?
Moments later, Lyrians in the hundreds burst from the trees.
Wait, are
Nilfgaardian
Lyrians or
defenders
unexpected
loaded
Lyrians?
their catapults and ballistae. They did so slowly, convinced the castle walls remained impenetrable.
But
Then they heard chains, grinding and clinking, and the sound sent shivers down their spines. Bewildered, they watched the main gate rise as the attacking force rushed forth.
Chase! Act! Quan! Aen Lyrian!
General Epdahi dispatched an elite unit to take back the Winch at once. Yet he saw this was in vain and all was lost when Meve rode into the castle courtyard.
okay. Sounds great thus far.
Meve had begun the day known as a great warrior. Yet by night's end, legend was the cloak she wore. Her shield stopped powerful blow after blow as her blade found gaps in her foe's black armor. At first, Nilfgaardians scoured the fray in search of the Queen, hoping to prove great heroes. Soon, she was their chief scourge, and they began to flee before her blade that sung their death.
Retreat! Retreat!
Okay, but surely we're actually going to have some kind of battle gameplay-wise in here, right? I assume it's not purely the novel aspect, possibly.
What was this extraordinary vigor that surged through Meve? Naturally, she wished to liberate her castle and realm, drive off the invaders, defeat the arrogant General Epdahi. But in that moment, above all else, she longed to fight her way through to the guardhouse and bring Gascon's party relief.
Follow me! Move! Move!
Okay. Noble. And if we can, get Gascon and the rest of his group back, then that theoretically makes us that much stronger. I do wonder, however, because back at the beginning of Valengren, we had the option of dismissing Reynard and or Gascon, and I imagine that this aspect, this component of this final encounter would go way different if you did not have both of them. So maybe that's why everything is going seemingly awfully smoothly, as of right now at least.
Meve had expected the worst. A bloodbath, piles of corpses. Yet all in the guardhouse was eerily quiet and calm. The door to the winch room lay shattered, true. But this was the one sign there'd been any sort of struggle. What happened here? She thought. Cautiously, she entered, looking, searching for any trace of Gascon and his fighters. Instead, she spotted Willem, curled up in the corner, clutching his bloodied belly, his fingers not enough to stop all the holes. Meve tore off her cloak and went to stem the bleeding.
Okay. Well, apparently this might have had something to do with maybe even more so Willem than Gascon. Or maybe Gascon is somewhere entirely different at the moment. Clearly Willem had some involvement. We did anticipate that based on what we chose when we encountered Willem not that long ago, that it was going to result in us fighting him in some way, shape, or form in the final encounter, and that he would likely end up dying. So I can't say I'm totally surprised, or that, you know, I feel super affected by this reveal here, because in many ways I kind of have already come to expect it and have been preparing for it.
Willem, what happened here?
My wrongs. I sought to right them.
Wheezed the prince.
Please, forgive me.
The young prince choked on this last word, did not manage to utter it, before his eyes went dull. Moments later, her men entered the room to find the queen kneeling, pounding the wall with her fists, her eyes flooded with tears. Willem lay motionless beside her, covered by her cloak.
Okay, so, again, I did in many ways see this coming, and I suppose mentally and emotionally prepared myself for this. So what might otherwise, if this were coming as more of a shock, might have left me floored with emotion. Not so much the case here, although I must say that, once again, very well written in the way that Willem here, after seemingly for the entire playthrough continuously showing complete ignorance and constantly being taken advantage of by all the Nilfgaardians, on this occasion, he seems to redeem himself in just about the best way he possibly could. Obviously, would have preferred if he had stayed alive, but a noble sacrifice, without a doubt. And if what he did is the difference maker that led us to ultimately succeed against the Nilfgaardians, then you have to say when it mattered most, he was there with his mother, the Rivians, the Lyrians, fighting for his nation.
Gascon pushed his way through the other foot soldiers. He knelt beside the queen and whispered what had happened. His unit had not managed to reach the gate in time, but Willem had. Upon seeing Lyrian forces converging on the fort, the prince had rushed to the guardhouse and opened the gate himself. By the time Nilfgaardians closed it again, it was too late. The Lyrians were through.
So there you have it. Confirmation it was not Gascon, nor any of the people working with him. It was in fact Willem. And if not for Willem, then maybe he's the one who ultimately made this go so smoothly, much more so than Gascon.
The queen rose, her fists clenched, her shoulders rigid, her knuckles white. Her face betrayed no sorrow, no despair, just rage, hot as a forge, immeasurable.
Now's not the time to mourn.
Seethed Meve, struggling to stay calm.
Now's the time for war, for slaughter, revenge. With victory today, we'll recover our home. return to our kin and set our blades aside at last. Yet until victory is ours, they must drink. Drink greedily of Nilfgaardian blood!
All right. That's great from Meve. Very, very well said. And again, I think that, you know what? We've talked about this a little bit before, but when heroes, squad mates, allies have died or left us in the past, it always felt like, or almost always, Isbel in particular being one notable exception, they had either a great reason for leaving, or, in this case, even if, and the case with Barnabas as well, I suppose, we understood that there would probably be some bad thing that would happen down the line, but even if in one sense it is sad news, we lost Barnabas, and more importantly here, Willem is dead. But on the other hand, it was an incredibly noble redemption arc for Willem, when it mattered most to have done this such a crucial thing to support his nation above the Nilfgaardians.
The Lyrians were at the brink, near their breaking point. They'd followed Meve for thousands of miles, over snow-clad peaks, through forbidding swamps. They'd fought, survived countless battles at her side. And though their gazes were now weary, she knew they'd follow her into fire.
Your Grace, the Blackclads, they've holed themselves up in the upper keep. We went to breach the wall, alas to no avail.
Meve nodded, twirled her sword, then leapt upon a mount. Her
Oh.
eyes spoke pure determination.
So we'll bloody well try again.
All right, let's do it. Here it is. I imagine this is the final encounter, the upper keep. Oh, it's Dahi, and is this the first time we've ever seen an animated card on this screen here? Just to further reinforce the weight of this encounter. The walls of the upper keep were illuminated by torchlight and the glow of burning buildings. Even in the dark of night, Meve could easily discern the fear-twisted faces of the Nilfgaardian defenders. The queen wiped tears from her cheeks, blackened with ash, and reached for her sword. The time had finally come to drive the Blackclads out, once and for all. Let's do it. Oh, and it's an altered version of the main theme. That's great. Okay, let's see. Before we choose our cards, what can we learn? I imagine Dahe has some incredibly powerful ability. Order reveal a unit from each player's deck. If yours has more power, boost an ally by 10. So that's pretty tough. Cooldown 1, he's doing that every turn. Okay, unless we have an incredibly powerful card hanging out in our deck, then that is going to give them a ton of value every turn. Whenever an ally is destroyed, summon another unit from your deck and its place, limit 10 times per... What? I saw the words limit. I was like, okay, surely that means that this is not going to be that big of a factor. 10 times per turn. What the heck? Is there any situation in which more than 10 are going to get destroyed in a single turn? I wouldn't think so, so that seems pretty crazy. All right, what do they have starting on the board? Imperial Enforcers, every turn start boost adjacent units by 1 if this unit has armor. We've seen these before. And they tend to make other units near them big, but they themselves are not that big. If we can get rid of their armor, they're no longer engines, but they do have a fair bit to start off with. Brigade, if in hand, deck, or on the battlefield, strengthen itself by 2 whenever an enemy unit appears on the range row. Right, so these are the ones we want to play in the melee row to combat. So, all right, it is a 3-round match. It's a story match, so I don't know if there's going to be extra little twists and turns at some point. There very well may be. So, all right. But in a vacuum, at least, in general, we want to spam Skellige guys as early and often as possible. We have, however, changed things up a little bit with the recent changes we've made to our deck with things like the Ballista, which we do want to play that early. However, we probably try to save that for round 2 or round 3 at the beginning of the round. And in that case, okay, Disgraced Warriors, that's fine. Reynard has been a card we've used more aggressively as of late and has been a big difference maker. If we can use him when we're actually using our lead ability a few times over, then triggering that loyal ability can be a big deal. Patricide, of course, definitely a card we want to play early as well. The Brawler, more Skellige stuff. Divana Runestone, we want to use that round 1, get more Skellige guys in our graveyard to power them all up. That is one thing I can think of that might prevent Dahe from getting the 10-point boost, is if we get a bunch of Skellige guys destroyed quickly, then we can increase the base power of the Skellige guys, and on the off chance that he does find, it's a random unit, right? A unit from each player's deck. If he happens to see a Skellige guy who has gotten a ton of base power increases, then maybe our unit is bigger, and that way... Wait, if yours has more power... Wait, whose perspective is this coming from? Is this coming from Dahi's perspective or from our perspective? When you say you, are we talking about Dahi's card being bigger or our card being bigger? Because that's important. Because originally I read that as if Dahi's card is bigger, he boosts himself by 10. But now I'm reading it the second time thinking that is actually if our card is bigger, which means we don't want to have big cards in our deck. But I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. Whenever an ally is destroyed. I mean, that seems to be speaking from his own perspective, meaning that if yours has more power would mean if the Nilfgaardian card, Dahi's card, is bigger than boosting an ally by 10, means we want to have big stuff in our graveyard, means we want to go aggressively with the Skellige guys as early as possible. Also, if we use leader ability a bunch, then eventually we will actually run out of cards, units at least, in our deck, or have very few remaining, at which point maybe he's only going to see really high power cards, and at that point, we can pretty much prevent him from getting that boost. Then Muzzle, I'm just a little concerned about the new stuff, because I don't remember exactly how we'd plan to use that. Muzzle's straightforward enough. Sees a bronze enemy unit, we want to have this be a really highly boosted bronze card. Tainted Ale, we've used that many times before. The Dragon's Dream, however. After 5 turns, turn end, destroy 3 random enemies. We can't have it target a boss. It is random. So what? We were thinking we try to go after little stuff with Skellige guys and with Ballistae and with Patricide and all that, so that at that point it's a higher probability that it removes one of their high power cards. We need to make sure we don't have an Infiltrator get destroyed by this. It's always a chance. Okay, so that in particular I'm nervous about. But I think, other than the Ballista, which we may want to mulligan out so we can save it for round 3, this hand looks pretty solid at Reynard. Obviously a great card as well, but also a card we want to save. So let's try... Okay, I think that is preferable. And I think we probably do stick with this. Having Dagger in hand, giving us flexibility so that we can play him whenever, not need to use leader ability to get him out, would be kind of nice. But I think since this is a 3-round match, we don't want to rush into that.
Do you hear me? I shall stick your head on a pike.
Okay, so I'm assuming the cards that he plays directly in the deck are going to be very similar to the ones we've seen for many other Nilfgaardian opponents. It's that leader ability that is really strong, so that might be the key difference maker here. We do want to make sure that we get Skellige guys down early, and Disgraced Warrior probably being the top priority, so we can get to Divana Runestone on that. Otherwise, I mean, technically if we delay a little bit, we could go Patricide first. That way we have more time in which to use you with a powerful order ability. Technically speaking, with the second aspect of his leader ability, the whole... Whenever an ally is destroyed, summon another unit from your deck in its place limit 10 times per turn. Oh, I was about to say, well, maybe the solution is you deliberately do destroy a bunch of units, and yes, initially he'll replace them, but perhaps you can do that enough times that he no longer has any cards in his deck. Something tells me that's going to be pretty hard to do when he has 90 cards in his deck, so no, that's probably not going to be the solution. The solution, at least for damaging stuff, is rather than destroying units, probably to weaken them down to a very low number so that we reduce the number of points that he has, but we don't remove the cards altogether, therefore we don't activate this whole summoning another unit in its place. Unless there's some other cards that actually we want to get summoned out through that because it weakens them, but I don't know. Hard to say at this point. Because we're making these decisions with a lot of things still very much uncertain. But let's go Patricide here, I think.
Wanna know why I got myself...
Oh, right. Melee row. And we will probably end up filling up this melee row pretty quickly, but let's get rid of you in the melee row so we have more space in the melee row where it is most valuable. We will definitely play melee row here. So we had a lot of Skellige guys in our hands. Okay, we do still have 2 in our deck, so that's fine. We can play both of them. Deal a little bit of damage there. You guys are going melee row for sure. So yeah, eventually we probably were going to need to play range row anyway. You guys still have armor, you'll get the boost. Okay, so that's 7 points. Yours is 21. So that does give them the boost. Okay, so our card needs to be bigger than their card to prevent the boost from happening. Okay, this could be very difficult. Return turn start, boost adjacent units by 1 if this unit has armor. And 15 armor is huge. So You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units on the board. That means if we use Patricide, we're not getting rid of the armor. We could get rid of the armor on one of these guys and weaken you a little bit as well. That's going to be pretty tough to get rid of this, though. I mean, maybe we can, with Divana Runestone, power some of these guys up a bit to the point where we can whittle away at that number slightly. I mean, otherwise we can use things like Muzzle to seize that Enforcers, but I think we want to save this for a later round. So let's go. I think it is still just going to be keep it simple. Divana Runestone. Stick to what has worked thus far. And we're going to find out if that is good enough or if we need to change things dramatically for this final encounter. So now with Patricide, the question is, do we get rid of the boosts here by removing your armor, or do we whittle away at this despite not having enough damage to outright remove it on this turn? Unless, let's just see. You hit for 10. You're functionally in 19, which means you still have 9 left. You hit back. You'll have 6 armor. You can only hit for 3. Oh, drops you to 6, which means Patricide does perfectly remove your armor. That might be worth doing. That might actually be worth doing. Then, I mean, this is 2 points per turn since you have units on either side of you, and you only have a unit on one side, so that's slightly less value in that sense. So maybe we do this. If my math is even right, which it might not be. Okay, armor gone. It's a small victory.
I must thank you. Your fortress has superbly solid walls.
Is that a reflection of how much armor his cards have? Okay, is that Ballista always the top card in our deck or something? Is there a reason why you've seen it twice in a row, or is that just pure coincidence? Okay, there's going to be a whole lot of these guys, it seems. And we cannot get this order ability back, unfortunately. So we need to play another Disgraced Warrior, and it'll take an extra turn before we can actually use that order ability. Patricide does still have his ability, so we could do, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that actually destroys you, which we don't really want to do, because then you summon a card to replace it. So I think we go here to just remove armor, slightly hit you through that. Oh, and also that armor as well. But yeah, we can't really do anything about that at the moment. So I'm not really sure. We should be strategizing around. We have to win 2 out of 3 rounds, so we don't necessarily need to win this round. But what is the right time for us to invest heavily? When is the time for us to say, not just yet? It seems like he's just loading up on non-stop Enforcers. Every time it's the Ballista, it feels like that's not a coincidence. Does he get to choose which card he's selecting? It's not the absolute smallest card in our deck, but it's one of them. But like, Dogger, for example, has the potential to become the biggest unit in our deck if we sacrifice even more Skeleton dudes, which we might be about to do. Although we actually didn't. We used your order ability, but we didn't actually get rid of you. So, other Disgraced Warrior? I think it probably has to be that. You're still too small to hit with Patricide. We did hit you with a Disgraced Brawler, and that's part of the reason for that. In fact, we could even justify Disgraced Brawler, so we have a way to get rid of your armor. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can certainly do this to hit you, and this Disgraced Warrior should be able to remove your armor. So I assume the math is pretty similar to what it was before. If anything, we should have more damage than we had before, because Patricide hits you a little bit harder. So it's mostly just a question of what are we preparing for on our next turn. Is it to use the Brawler, or is it to use another warrior to remove your armor? I mean, technically you're worth more because you're boosting on both sides, whereas you're only boosting once per turn. Except that the warrior plays are technically negative points, at least in the short term, because they're getting hit for a lot more damage than we're hitting them, and they're tanking most of the damage with the armor, even if we do have a reason to remove it. So I think maybe we go Brawler here, so we at least still have a chance to win this round. And it's a chance? It's a chance that Dahi will pass here, because he's still in the lead. It'd be a bit of an early pass.
Enough.
What the heck is that?
I do not need to hear this. Kill her.
He does pass. He does pass early. It's a little bit arrogant, which I suppose is thematically fitting, but okay, we have seen this before. Every turn start, damage the highest unit by 5. If its power is an even number, the highest unit is in fact Patricide, who is in fact on even power. That does stink. So, do we have a way to take those guys out? Not immediately, no. Patricide would take 15 damage in this case, which is a lot. Okay, so if he takes 15 damage, though, he's functionally at 23 right now because he has that 3 armor, which means, what, he dropped to 8? So he still is on even power. I mean, he wouldn't be the highest unit anymore. After that, we'd hit a Disgraced Brawler, which would get destroyed by all that damage, which would empower the other Skellige guys, which is a net positive. The question is, basically, you've passed early, so we could still play 2 more cards to try to catch you. Is it beneficial to keep on playing now and go multiple cards down to do that, with the understanding that we're just going to dry pass in round 2? Can we do that when, even after he has passed, he's still going to continue to get 15 points of damage from the assassins, or at least in all likelihood we'll get 15 points from each of the assassins, and these guys will still do a small amount of boosting. So we're going to need some pretty serious tempo here. This is too slow. This is too slow. This, I mean, we could use to steal at the 16 or even one of the assassins, although I don't really think that's going to be that effective. I mean, it would hit one of the brigades, which is something. Reynard, it's not really the situation I want to be playing him in. Might it be Warrior now? Well, Warrior would become the biggest unit on the board, wouldn't it, if we were to play it here? After Patricide, at least. So then you'd get empowered by 1 and gain some armor from Valmir's Horn. You would be on even power, then you would get hit by these guys. You would live, unless we, yeah, you would live. Could potentially still sacrifice you. This is such a difficult position to be in. It's not exactly the easiest math problem to figure out. So we could just pass here and accept the fact that basically all the engines that Dahi still has running, even after he's passed, will be enough for him to claim the win here. Can we still make it work if we seize a brigade? That's the biggest base power card that they have. But Assassin is worth... it's still not worth as much, I don't think. Not unless we... Maybe if we stole it with Muzzle on this very turn. Still don't really think so. All right, I'm going to take our chances here. This is extremely risky. This is possibly a game-losing decision right here.
Come on, kill me!
Oh, also we couldn't have done... Yeah, we lost. We couldn't do this guy. It had to be you. Yeah, we lost. In all likelihood. Because that is going to have ramifications for every subsequent round. Yeah, that was a humongous blunder and we've lost, in all likelihood. So, well, I guess we'll see if we can salvage this, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, these guys obviously showed up out of nowhere for plot reasons. Maybe Meve and Gascon and Reynard will have something else up their sleeve to combat them, but I am not sure about that. So what were we even going to hit with the Patricide here? I mean, we could hit one of you, but yeah, we can destroy 1. Doesn't really benefit us much. Don't want to destroy you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I messed up big time. I mean, we don't want to destroy altogether. So basically, we just hit you, and we kind of have no choice but to do that, because you at least live. And it would have been that we'd use this order ability here. Technically, this is still a net positive. We don't want to hit you. Get rid of that armor, and sure, we'll weaken one of you. We wanted to have it so that these were, at least after Patricide gets hit, going to be the 2 highest cards on our side of the board, not you. That way these would get sacrificed, or at least one of them would, and we'd hopefully have enough Skellige dudes at that point that we'd benefit enough from doing that we'd still pass them. I don't know. I mean, these have enough base power that maybe that's still good enough. We'll see what happens here. Patricide gets hit. Oh, wait. What? Oh, technically, once Patricide drops... Yeah, they don't all do it simultaneously. Oh, okay. So they're not really going to sacrifice... they're not really necessarily going to sacrifice one of them. But we have a 1-point lead here. I honestly cannot fathom how that happened, but just check. Turn start. So it's not like these guys are going to activate if we pass right now. You are also on turn start. Anything here that's going to lose value at the end of our turn shouldn't be the case. I think we pass and somehow get away with a 1-point win when we absolutely did not deserve it.
Fools! I'm surrounded by fools!
Okay. Well, maybe we can pull this off after all. I'm surprised we had that much tempo on that turn. I guess we tanked some of their damage from the assassins with our armor. And again, I didn't really expect that it was going to change the target. I thought it was just going to have all those 3 assassins hit Patricide. But now we are going to have leader ability back here on this turn. What we'd really like to see is we really want to draw into Dogger and then use leader ability immediately to put him back into our deck. That way we get all the other Skellige guys onto the board. Dogger is still in our deck, so we can still bring him out in round 3. So huge tempo. And that way Dahi has to find a way to catch us. Otherwise, if he doesn't do that quickly, he's going to be cards down in round 3. Which, I mean, given how many cards he started out with in round 1, I wouldn't necessarily rule that out, that he might have a way to make that happen. But we don't have set up for the Alchemist at the moment, or outside of Tainted Ale at least. How aggressively do we try to get Dogger here? How many cards do we have? This is 8, which means we have exactly 1 throwaway, so it really needs to be Dogger. Otherwise, I mean, I guess we could drop a Disgraced Brawler. He at least goes into our graveyard that way, so we get 1 additional Skellige guy that comes out when we do play Dogger. So if we keep Dogger in deck, we use leader ability to bring him out. The tricky thing there is that Dogger is on the board, and we can't get him back in round 3 unless we wait until our leader ability comes off cooldown, then we can put him back into our deck. But that is, that's going to take a long time to do. And I don't know, maybe Dahi has a way to destroy him, maybe Dahi has a way to create a whole bunch of carryover, and that means the longer this round goes, the more problematic that'll be in round 3. I mean, technically, if we bleed in round 2, we make this round 2 go for somewhat of a long time. That makes for a short round 3. That means if we do still have Dogger, we break him out, we get a quick 100+ points from him and all the Skellige guys, and it gives Dahi very little time to catch us. So there is still a case to be made for doing that. And if we were to do that, then I guess playing all the Ballistae at the beginning of the round is not a terrible idea. I still think that maybe we dump one of these, though, in pursuit of Dogger. Okay, that changes everything. We're good. Okay, so we play Dogger. We immediately put him back into our deck. And remember to put him back into the deck with the leader ability. We have messed that up on at least one occasion. Okay, I think we can play in the range row here. I mean, not that that matters too much, but... Okay, so we get all these guys back. They'll get a little bit stronger. 1 point higher than they were before. So what we're doing here is Dahi has 3 cards he can play in this round. If he has to play more than that, then he's going to be at card disadvantage in round 3. So he needs to get, and we're about to bring out, put Dogger back into our deck, and we might even just bring the Footman out, to be honest with you, because Alchemist, I mean, I wasn't really making a point of playing cards in a place where they were going to set up Alchemist. Probably should have thought that one through a little bit more to see, you know, what we wanted to bring out. Otherwise, we do have 1 Ballista. These other ones are phonies. Definitely don't want Infiltrator because they have no cards on their side of the board, so I think we might just throw away the Footman, especially because that is a card that we do not want Dahi to be checking in our deck with his leader ability, because that is our lowest card. So I think we get rid of Dogger. This absolutely must happen. Do not replay him. Do not replay him here. Instead, I mean, if we had intention of bleeding further in this round, yes, you could go for Reinforced Ballista, or you could keep it simple and just go for the straightforward. Oh, I guess we are going to need to play an Alchemist. Well, we could play a Footman next to Patricide, I think is the biggest, and then use the Alchemist to boost up the Footman. Maybe we do that. Okay, so we put you here because Patricide is the biggest.
Off to the front yet again.
And then we power you up based on Patricide's power.
There's been a mistake.
Like that.
I'm no
Okay,
mage.
so about 150 points in 1 turn. Dahi has 3 turns to catch us. Technically, we can decide on our next turn if we do want to try to push it all. We run the risk of being cards down in that case in round 3, because we did play more cards in round 1. It's your deal. Boost health by the number of units in your opponent's hand after 3 turns. Turn start. Repeat the deploy ability. So you are gonna. What the heck? That's huge. You are gonna get pretty big after 3 turns, but we could sacrifice these guys, which gives us more long-term value in round 3. Are we trying to bleed in round 2 to set up a short round 3 in which we just point slam, dogger, and that's our win condition? Or are we trying to go high tempo round 2 like we just did, pass early, and see if we can force Dahe to go cards down in round 3 and win by having card advantage in round 3. Reason why normally I would do that in multiplayer Gwent, I generally am preferring to go for card advantage in round 3. The tricky thing with that though is because we have so many Skellige guys, in long rounds we tend to run out of board space, and if you don't have enough board space to play all of your cards, then your card advantage doesn't mean much. We could also, if we wanted to get really clever, we could seize you. We could wait to seize you until a little bit later, because this is going to get huge. And the boost technically gets smaller if we play more units here. But could also proactively play Dragon's Dream, and if it does take 5 turns for Dahe to catch us, then he's going to lose some units in the process. So I think we do actually play a little bit further. I think we actually do. Part of me, this makes me really nervous. This is not my usual playstyle, at least in multiplayer Gwent. But we're going to see what we can do here. And if that means you're getting an even bigger spotter, and it does, and that means it's an even better target to use muzzle on. Okay, they're going to use multiple spotters. So this is solid tempo, yes, but if we steal one of them, then that's going to make matters more difficult for them. I mean, if we can drop a brawler, that'd be pretty nice too. Let's get the other ballista down here. So because we're going to have a short round 3, which is what we're now planning to do, that means we're not going to have a lot of time to use the ballistas in round 3, which is why playing them early in round 2 and getting the value from them in round 2 is going to be the way to go here. And if we load up here, I mean, Patricide does not exactly have a lot of damage at the moment, but we want to keep this guy big because we're planning to seize him, but we would like to get rid of you in that case. We could sacrifice the warriors to give ourselves bigger point slam in round 3, so in some ways that is actually more along the lines of what we're trying to do for a round 3 win condition. It's just that we also do still like the amazing tempo that we have, because that is nice too. Okay, that's a bit of an issue. Who gets boosted in this case? It's you. Okay. That is an issue. Because now it is much harder to... I mean, we can't target you. Technically, you're not a boss. But you also have resilience. It's also annoying. We could use Dragon's Dream here. The round would have to go for 5 more turns. Which, with this much of a point advantage, maybe that would still happen. But that is certainly not a guarantee. What if we Tainted Ale on you to remove you? That is somewhat slow. We go Tainted Ale, then we're okay with that. Then it's Disgrace Brawler, then it's Muzzle. It means we absolutely will not have Dragon's Dream activate in this round, so we don't want to get stuck with this. And Reynard, I'd certainly rather not play him either. I mean, would have been good if we played him early in this round, I suppose, but in a short round 3, he's not going to be that good. Still is an important card, though, so maybe we try to save him as well. It's just that we get at least one card that we absolutely do not want to play in this round if we do continue to push further. So, or we seize you, which it's not quite as valuable as the spotter, especially because the spotter is going to continue to get a little bit bigger. I mean, if we were to use some Skellige guys, maybe we can remove you that way and not even have to break out Tainted Ale. Let's see where the Ballistae and Patricide get us. I think we are, at the very least, willing to play this turn. Okay, so you're down to 20, which is certainly still too big for the Disgraced Warriors to take you out. The Brawlers can weaken you slightly before the Warriors go, which is kind of nice, but it's still a bit of an issue because you only have one target to go after, which means it is technically still a slight net positive play, I suppose, since you have the armor. It's just not as good as it otherwise would be. But weakening you before we have warriors target you is very good. Otherwise, we could deliberately sacrifice some of the weaker warriors to power these guys up and make them more capable. of destroying you. We do both of these. It's -6, you go to 14. Sacrifice 1 Disgraced Warrior. We're probably right around the place where we want to be in that case. So I don't think we're going to need Tainted Ale. We may not need Tainted Ale in that case. So let's go. Let's do it. Live here. So we are playing super aggressively in this case. We're going to sacrifice you, which we should still be able to do. That powers up these guys. Now you're 18 with 1 armor. You hit for 14. You're functionally a 19, so you survive with 5. You hit back, and that drops you down to a 9, at which points you can destroy. So it is going to lower our point value, but I think that probably is still worth it. Okay, because now... Oh, true. It does replace one of their units. I totally forgot about that part. That was kind of a trap in that sense. Okay, but at least we got rid of the resilience, or rather, rid of the immunity and resilience on the other guy that we just destroyed, which means we can seize this guy if we would like to. I kind of want to wait one more turn, though, so we can get the Brawler down here to give us more value when we replay Dogger in round 3.
Think I'm a beard.
We do this, we don't really want to use these guys if we don't have to. Dahi, I want you to boost this guy. I'm not sure that you will, but I really want you to. Yeah, you're not going to. Okay. You also get boosted. You're an engine. So yeah, it does also seem like Dahi has a bunch of engines, which means, in general, a longer round favors him. So that's one way in which, by having this round 2 go longer, we reduce the length of round 3, which favors us with our point slam Dogger strat. So maybe we could go Tainted Ale. I think it might have just enough time to remove one of their units. We don't want to target you because we're going to try to go after you. You're not going to be a huge factor if we don't use many order abilities, and we might not need to if we are going to pass fairly soon. I mean, Patricide, it's honestly not even worth that much here. Ballista, a little bit better. Next time enemy uses order, boost self by 2, gain 2 armor. So you gain 4, but we have 6 damage, so that is still a net 2-point positive if we use Ballista on you, if we can even break through your armor, though, which is not exactly a given. So I think we just go orderless from here on out. That means you're going to remain small. You might continue to receive boosts, in which case you will be probably you are currently the second biggest unit and may even become the largest unit, certainly after this Tainted Ale. So let's Tainted Ale you, and then next turn we'll seize this spotter. You don't have... Oh, it's not the... You don't repeat that deployability indefinitely. It only happens once. Okay, so you're going to stay at 35 unless they use another round of order abilities on, or leader ability on you. I think our plan remains the same here. Target you. I think we're going to have just barely enough time for this to activate, assuming that it takes Dahi enough turns to catch us, which may or may not be true.
Let it be night.
Damage all enemies by 4. Almost enough to destroy you, which would actually be beneficial to us. That's going to boost somebody. Want it to be either of these two. Either of these two are fine. Not that guy. Okay, he is being smart with who he's boosting. He is close to catching us, which is a problem because he has way more cards than we do at the moment. But we are about to at least swing momentum back in our favor a bit by... Oh. Excuse me? You're gold. Alright. Well, in multiplayer Gwent, you are a bronze unit. But apparently, in this case, you're a gold. So we actually can't seize you. So that does change things a bit. I suppose it means we're going to want to seize the Alba Cavalry in that case. And we might even want to use order abilities to make you bigger in that case. So, okay. Let's go. We'll use Patricide to hit, I guess, you, since you have the least armor. So yeah, you are now apparently the best option for it. Let's just confirm that we can seize you. I think we can. Okay. If we can't, then we're about to get in a lot of trouble here. Okay, then we do this. And this last point is not going to make much of a difference. Ah, I forgot. Don't destroy the unit lids. Leave it on 1 power. That was perfect. I forgot. And that is a really nasty card for them to get out. And we can't destroy it. Otherwise, we're going to get a different card out. That was a bad mistake. And unless we seize that, but that's definitely not what I had in mind. We can continue to use more orders if we'd like to. Let's see. It is technically a net positive, and if it's just going to make you bigger, and we're about to seize you, then that does work even better for us. I mean, it's just hitting armor. So it's not really reducing your point value at all. We could sacrifice a disgraced warrior. Yeah. We lose 8 points to gain 2 points in every Skellige card. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Skellige cards. So it's 16. Lose 8 to gain 16. Lose 8 to gain 14. In both cases, it's worth it, and we also get more points from stealing you, and you'll be bigger when we do this. So I think it is still worth doing this. But we have played with fire a lot. I mean, a lot. Okay, I was about to say, if we can't steal you, we are in some serious trouble. I will steal you. And if they're going to use some mortar abilities, which at the moment they don't have any, but they might, then that'll be big. I hate. This could be a huge factor that they got this, but that was a big point swing. So we would like to pass on our next turn. We will technically get leader ability back, but I think we'll still look to pass. So that stinks. They basically get a free 11 points out of that. Draw 3 cards, boost all allies, but what the heck? Excuse me? Okay, well that is the biggest card we have in our deck. So that is the one case in which you will not be able to get boosted. Okay, so here is where I would like to pass. Suddenly he has way more cards than I expected him to have, which is kind of terrifying, because that makes it all the more difficult for us to pull off the strategy we're trying to pull off. But in one turn, Tainted Ale will destroy this foot soldiers, so we technically do still have additional value we will generate. I mean, the longer the round goes, yes, we can still technically get more value from these Ballistae, and we could use Reynard to reuse some of that stuff. And Reynard doesn't really benefit from a short round, but oh man, I am growing increasingly terrified. I think we still pass here. Okay, because he can go a lot longer now than I had anticipated after having drawn a bazillion cards. I did not see that coming. Okay, we destroy that one, but that also means they're going to get out another they're getting 2 Madden divisions per turn. Oh, God. Oh, goodness. Okay. You won't get the boost because Dagger's too big. But, okay, at least it means you're going to have to play 1 more card here on this turn. Still going to have huge card advantage. Not quite as much as it might have previously seen. You're going to have 2 card advantage. Okay, you know what? Seeing as how you had a card that gave you 3 card draw that we had no idea about, I think that it's about as good as this still could have been. Because it was basically going to happen no matter what, that you were going to have at least 3 card advantage, and we actually whittled that down to just 2 card advantage. So I guess in that sense, you could look at it as we did still somewhat succeed with the bleed in round 2. We tried to make round 3 shorter so that it would just be Dagger point slamming and Dahi not having enough time to catch us. That's really the biggest problem, is that Dahi has a lot more time to catch us than we had anticipated. If we had 3 Daggers, that'd be kind of amazing, but we don't. Dagger's one of the cards in our deck. And the other, which is the other real card? I think it might be an Alchemist, unless we drew, no, we drew one. It's another Footman? No, it's the other Infiltrator, is what it is. And we've used most of our Infiltrator setup. Might still be able to make that work. Since, yes, it does take a few turns, but since it does seem as though Dahi has a ton of boosting, maybe that still will have decent options. We want to be careful we don't destroy it with Dragon's Dream. Although we only have 5 cards, assuming Dahi continues to play, Dragon's Dream should still be able to have enough time to destroy some cards on his side. Oh, man. This is going to be pretty crazy. Do we want to have Dogger in hand, or do we want to use just leader ability to get him out? Because we will have leader ability on this turn. So, does that make a difference? We have him in hand, we play him, and we immediately put him back into our deck so we can replay him with leader ability. Is that any different from playing him from our deck with leader ability? Not really, right? Either way, we can only replay him only replay him once we get leader ability back. So I don't really think that makes any difference at all. And we're going to get those cards out from our deck once we use leader ability anyway. So I think we just settle for what we have here. It's going to be Ballista first, I think. We do need to play Dragon Stream early. Yeah, that's the one card that would not get you boosted. Damage all enemies by 1, cooldown 2. Death Wish, damage all units on this row by 4. So if we can destroy you, it's worth a lot. I'm assuming you get more units there. But now, ooh, we do need a unit on the board to get Dogger back into our deck. I mean, I think it might just be... It's probably Ballista, leader ability on Ballista, replay Ballista and Dogger. And then we want to... Or... Yeah, I mean, Reynard's not going to make a difference right now. Are we going to get... We're not going to get leader ability back at all, are we? Yeah, because the round is short enough that Reynard will not have time to activate his loyal ability and won't be able to replay Dogger at all in that case. Okay, suppose we did set ourselves up for that, but not really sure that changes all that much, truth be told. We have time. We actually might need to play Dragon Stream turn 1. Let's use 6 cards. Happens on our turn start. I think we might need to play this turn 1. I think we have to. It's going to make the Infiltrators pretty scary unless we rush them. I mean, technically it doesn't matter that much when we play Dogger. And since we aren't going to get leader really back in time anyway, it's not as if that's, the timing matters here. We just want to... Yeah. Okay, I think it's this. Wait. Oh, right, it's an artifact, technically not a special, unlike multiplayer Gwent. That's our first time using this card. Hopefully it pays off for us. Doesn't have anything to hit. Okay, you did get a small unit. So that means you will get boosted there. I mean, that could be the card we target for things like the Infiltrator. This is going to take 4 turns. This takes 2. So I think, yeah, we want to get the Ballista down, but we also want to rush the Infiltrators because if this destroys an Infiltrator, it's negative points from us. And it might be worth taking that risk of not being able to get quite as much time on the Ballista. Because this is a short enough round that this is not going to be a huge factor anyway. So yeah, I think we have to do this. That way you should come back in time. And we're going to have to possibly use leader ability on our next turn to get our other Infiltrator out. Otherwise, that's also going to do a whole lot of nothing. Or at least run the risk of getting destroyed by the Dragon Stream. It does mean we're continuing to deny them opportunities. They might even boost the Infiltrator here, because it seems like he's usually boosting the smallest card on his side of the board. Oh, yes. Okay, I do like that. What the heck, though? What is up with all these calls for aid? Incredibly powerful card. Okay, well, now there's definitely time for Dragon Stream to activate. Didn't expect him to have another copy of that card. Which is definitely the strongest card we've seen in the entire game thus far. Unless you want to, Dogger on our side, I suppose. But, okay. So now that technically means we could, well... Now we should still use the leader ability now to get the other Infiltrator out. Otherwise, and that way it will still come back just before Dragon Stream activates. If we don't, then we run the risk of it getting destroyed. So yes, we do have to do that now. We don't have any unit to put back. Well, what we could do, it depends. What's more valuable to us is we want this Ballista, or even this. We could drop this Alchemist. One card is not going to get played, or at least is going to end up sitting in our deck at the end of the match. Do we want that card to be Ballista? Because, although it is good, it needs a lot of time to power up, so in a short round it's not going to do much for us. Alchemist, because at the moment there's nothing for it to target. Although, once we do get Skeleton guys out there, it is possible we could still make this decent. I imagine it's not Reynard, although we won't be able to activate his loyal ability. I'm assuming playing him as possibly our final play to give ourselves extra charges on the Skellige guys, in particular Patricide. might still be reasonably valuable to us. Although, they don't have a lot of units, and that's still not a huge deal either. Obviously, we're going to get Dogger out here. The other card is the other Infiltrator, which... that might be the thing that we just choose not to play. I mean, it's pretty solid value, though, especially if they boost it with their leader ability again, which it seems like we can trick them into doing. So, Alchemist, we use it to set something to 26, because I think Patricide is the biggest Skellige guy. On a Disgraced Warrior, that's a plus 17. I think that's more valuable than the Ballista. Ballista is 6 points per turn. Plus, it'll be an 8-point body. That's 14. So 2 turns Ballista is better. No, I guess it is Ballista. It's better. So Alchemist draws the short sword. It might even be Reynard. Because, well, Reynard will allow us to more easily sacrifice Disgraced Warriors, but they're big enough at this point that that might not even be worth doing. Besides with the smallest ones, and those are the ones that don't really need extra orders to make that happen. I think it's actually Reynard. I think it's actually Reynard. So that means play Ballista here. Use leader ability on Ballista. And... oh, no, yeah. No, it's gonna have to be Infiltrator, isn't it? Oh, shoot. Okay, no, we wanted to play Reynard there. Yeah, I got the way in which we decide which card doesn't get played. I got mixed up. We needed to play Reynard, put him back into our deck, because if we want to play Infiltrator, we have to get it with this leader ability, so we're not going to see the Ballista. I think we can live with that. I think Infiltrator will still be better than the Ballista, assuming that if we put it over here, it'll get boosted by 10 from his leader ability, or at least is fairly likely to do that, and then it'll get boosted by a 30-ish point Heavy Scorpion as well. So I think it is still this. That was also a bit of a misplay, and we've had a lot of those. We have had a lot of those, which is kind of terrifying. Okay, maybe we clog the range row for the time being, in case he does happen to play one of those guys that powers up all their cards. If we play something in the range row, they don't have it yet. So fill the range row now. Yeah, we should leave room, though, for something small next to Patricide, which is going to be the smallest of the Skellige dudes, but I already played him. So that's another little misplay. It's going to be Reynard instead. That's going to have to mean just slightly less value. Okay. You know, we'll see how much those mistakes start to add up. This is what we were building around. Oh, well, now we can't do that either. Would love to have this be a target of the Alchemist. Okay, please boost you. Thank you.
Of course.
Well, you will come over to this side now. Keeps on adding more cards to the deck. But yeah, this was our win condition, was basically have a short round 3, which, granted, this was not nearly as short as I hoped it would be, and get huge tempo from Dogger, but they're going to have a lot more time to catch up than I had hoped they would have. So that's kind of scary. We do still have Dragon's Dream will activate in a couple of turns. So, these two, how do we make them work? We think we put Reynard next to Dogger, since we aren't going to have room here. And then it's going to have to be Alchemist on Dogger. We're not going to have the Infiltrator come back quickly enough to use Alchemist on that. And when you come back, you're going to be the rightmost card, so we'd be weakening you if we used Alchemist on you anyway. So it's going to have to be Reynard here. Before we do that, though, we hit... not you. Well, it's a lot of armor here. I mean, I think we might end up sacrificing some people to you. Let's weaken you, I guess. And now we're going to use any order abilities that we want to use. We have 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Skellige guys. Which means 22 points gained if we sacrifice one of these guys. We lose 10 in the process, so that is definitely worth doing. It also means more value when we use Alchemist to power up Reynard. So we should sacrifice you, which we should be able to pretty easily do. And it should also be net positive to sacrifice you, which means we should actually sacrifice you first, because you're going to be a little bit harder to sacrifice since you're bigger. Might even be net... Hold on. If ever there was a time to stop doing the math correctly, this would be it. So 14 points Disgraced Warrior. Yeah, wait. We had 11 Skellige guys. So this is lose 10 to gain 22. This is lose 12 to gain 20. This is lose 14 to gain 18. So that is still net positive. We should start with you. And you're going to be the hardest to sacrifice if we delay, so we should sacrifice you to this. The Scorpion will still destroy you. We won't damage the Scorpion at all, so we don't need to worry about weakening the Infiltrator in the process. So we do that. In fact, we can sacrifice everybody to the Scorpion if we'd like to. And that shouldn't be an issue at all. Oh, true, these guys do get stronger after the sacrifices, so it's I think this is still lose 14 to gain. I think it was 18, so it is still a net positive, not by a huge amount, but by a bit. And now it is Reynard here, unless we had other Skellige warriors that we wanted to use here, but I don't really think so. I think these are all, well, technically, if they didn't have armor, this would be a net positive, but they do have good armor, so it's not. So I think it's just this.
Company, forward march!
So Reynard was the card that we actually should have kept in our deck, and we should have gotten the other Ballista out, because it would have given us a little more value. So all Reynard is doing is giving us an extra round of this, which, as you can see, is not terribly impressive. But this will still come back right now. It is a big point swing.
That was not in the spellbooks.
But he keeps on adding non-stop cards. He has some huge things in his deck that he has not played. I don't know what to make of that. Alright, so now it's going to be Alchemist, power up Reynard.
Greetings. What is it?
So that's plus 17. Patricide, hit you. It's some damage. Now we basically have to pass here and pray that Dahi cannot catch us further. Dragon Stream will go off at the end of this turn, right? Destroy 3 of their cards. We'd love for it to destroy that heavy Scorpion, and it might do that. It's, in fact, a pretty high probability of that happening, but I've probably now jinxed it. Scorpion does go off. Going to continue to get boosts from that. For sure. I'd love to get rid of that Scorpion with Dragon Stream, and it does. Okay, that's huge. I mean, yes, all those things will get replaced by cards that are worth almost the same, if not more. Oh, this was still getting powered up when we played stuff in the range row, even when it was not in their hand. I did not realize that. Okay, this is kind of scary because we are now, there's nothing we can do. We do still have a pretty large point advantage, but I mean, if you continue to add cards to your hand and all that, then we don't really have much of a way to beat you. But we'll see. We'll see.
Barbarians.
Okay, at least that doesn't seem to be that big. I don't remember what the other abilities are. Damage us a little bit, boost you a little bit. Still have a 136 point lead, but that lead is growing smaller. Can they catch us with 2 cards?
A highly curious case.
Well, it's looking decent here. Last card, they need just over 100, or exactly 101 points. What's it going to be? We did, of course, make several mistakes across the way, some of which were more significant than others, but that was not a big finisher. We do hold on. Difficult because he just had non-stop cards, which really messed with our strategy, but we did, with a little bit of luck, still manage to pull it off.
Nilfgaard had the upper hand, yet the black-clad spirits had suffered. They now made more use of shields than of swords. When Meve finally broke through their line, they raised their arms in surrender. Rivia Castle had fallen. It was hers once more. Meve showed her prisoners of war mercy, knowing
Oh.
full well they'd only followed orders. Death would be the fate of only Ardal Ebdahi, the one Nilfgaardian who'd issued those commands.
I see. I'm a little surprised that that is the game choosing on our behalf and not giving us that decision to make. So that's the type of thing that we've oftentimes had the choice to do.
Alas, the general had disappeared.
Oh, look at his
A
face.
prisoner revealed Ebdahi had fled as soon as the Lyrians had surged towards the upper keep.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
He had
It
glided
did seem
down to
like
the
he was
lower
all talk.
castle in a wicker basket for transporting food. Curled up beneath potato skins and other scraps, he'd scurried away not unlike a common maggot.
Yep. He was a strategist and an aristocrat, but he was not exactly one who was all that keen on fighting himself, and so when we actually came for him, he fled. Like the coward that he is.
Meve cursed her luck and leaned back against a merlin. Dawn was yet a few hours off, but the horizon had already begun to glow blood red. The Nilfgaardian reserves now drew near, too late to prevent the castle's fall.
I'll get him.
Muttered the queen, more to herself than anyone else.
I swear on all that's sacred I'll catch the bastard. But now we've a pressing matter to see to. Preparing the defense.
Oh? Are we about to fight them as well?
That night, the war turned, with the battle for Rivia Castle as its fulcrum. Meve's great victory, not only retaking the stronghold in a single evening, but also fending off a further invading army, proved the Nilfgaardian Colossus had feet of clay.
Hey. I mean, on one hand, you could say that it would have been kind of nice to have also participated in that battle ourselves, but on the other hand, you know, you have to have Dahi be the climax, the final boss, right? And so to have some battle afterward that we play in would just feel really anticlimactic, so I think it actually is the right choice to have this just be something that gets mentioned in the narrative, but not something we participated in directly.
The armies of the north had united and now seemed to be on the attack everywhere. Imperial forces, while still far more numerous, lay stretched over thousands of miles. Their position was untenable, and Nilfgaard's commanders knew this. In a decisive battle, they yet stood a chance, so they gave said battle, and suffered a resounding defeat. Just a few months on from that memorable night in Rivia, the Imperial army was in utter disarray. Aldersburg, the fortress, remained a last point of resistance. General Ebdahi and what had survived of Army Group East had dug in there, this place, where Nilfgaard had triumphed grandly in the war's early days, would now bear witness to its impending defeat. It seems history, after all, has a sense of justice, or humor, or both. Though Meve had already reclaimed her realm, she refused to retire her sword just yet. For King Demavend had requested her aid in purging Edirn of the invader. How could she refuse? She owed the king a favor, firstly. Yet she also had a burning desire to settle the score with Ebdahi.
Demavend's envoy and I spoke, Your Majesty. The king has Aldersburg surrounded. He awaits and won't begin the assault till you arrive.
Okay, interesting. I mean, that was a while ago that we helped Demavend. But we are circling back to that, I suppose, and maybe an opportunity to actually take out Dahe for good. I mean, it seemed for a second there like it was kind of setting that up as a potential avenue for a sequel, which I'm pretty sure I'd heard that there were originally plans to make a Thronebreaker sequel, just that the original game took a lot longer and was more difficult to develop than they had anticipated, and so it just wasn't realistic for them to follow it up. Unfortunate, because I've loved Thronebreaker, but alas, I think that Rogue Mage perhaps was sort of the alternative in that case that they ultimately settled on, and that obviously is a very different type of game, the one we also tried.
Good. I truly hate to miss it. Tell the troops to prepare. Gear and ire.
Of course, Your Grace.
Yes? Is there something else?
Reynard?
Pardon my boldness, Your Grace, but I can't help but be concerned. You don't sleep. You've the air of illness about you.
Reynard, I just buried my son, who died in my arms, God damn it.
Yes. Died a hero.
I agree. As I was saying, I think in many ways, he found one of the only ways to redeem himself.
Your Majesty, I wasn't sure Willem could ever wash away the shame. He'd betrayed his country, his mother, aligned with the fiercest of our foes. But his actions in Rivia washed away his wrongs. Willem showed himself worthy to be called your son.
I agree.
I don't say any of this to deepen your grief, Your Majesty. I mean merely for you to be proud of him.
Which, it's probably been a very long time since Meve last thought that. You're right, Reynard, thank you. Willem's death was my fault. I think Reynard's right. I agree.
You're right. I thank you, Reynard. That I needed to hear. We've talked enough. We must march on to Aldersburg.
Oh? Okay, I was half expecting for that to be a dramatic fade to black, or just a little fade to black, and that being the end of the game, credits roll. But seems like another time when we are going to just walk around a camp, kind of like we had just before the final battle, in a place where we were here a very long time ago, and it looked very different then. A lot more somber, for sure.
Just watch and wait. I wager you'll chase the Emperor himself off the throne.
So maybe this is our opportunity to revel in our victory. Soak it all in.
They say war's a man's affair, but you showed them, my lady. They say war's a man's affair, but you showed them, my lady.
I assume there's just people to talk to and nothing else to interact with. Or there is still loot? What? Oh, no, it's a letter. Okay. I mean, with resources as well, because I was about to say, can we go out and craft a whole bunch of stuff now? Because I assume there are no more encounters for us, no actual battles or anything like that. In which case, perhaps we have now successfully finished all of Thronebreaker without having crafted a single unit. To all soldiers in service of the Nilfgaardian Empire are hereby ordered to promptly head to Aldersburg. The defense of this castle is vital for our planned counter-offensive. Failure to comply with this order will result in punishment of particular severity. And when Nilfgaard is saying that, Dahi in particular, you know, that much he probably does mean. What's going on here? That's an Endurnian flag. And, and Nilfgaardians. Yes.
The Lyrian army had grown into a great serpent. So much so that riding at the column's tail, Meve could not see its head. Footmen, cavalry, and archers stretched like a glistening snake between two horizons. Meve had come a long way indeed, and she felt proud.
Okay, I feel like, snake has some negative connotations here. I feel like you're about to give us a little surprise. Oh, but by the way, something terrible happened.
Suddenly, Meve heard angry cries and the clash of steel against steel, all at the column's front.
Close ranks! To the left! March left! Support the flank!
Meve drew her sword, spurred her horse, and galloped forward along the line of troops. Then, through the swirling battle dust, she spotted shimmering golden suns.
Oh, wow. We actually do. We actually do have another encounter. It's a shortened battle, just one round. It's a story battle. I'm surprised. Nilfgaardian survivors. And as I was saying earlier, I would have thought that the final encounter would be against Dahi, because you would think that anything after this would feel very strange and just wouldn't be able to live up to the encounter that we just had. But I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Meve drew her sword, yet did not rush headlong into the heat of battle as she once would have. Old wounds and lasting traumas still nagged her, and besides, enough blood had already been spilt. The queen awaited the day when she could finally exchange her heavy armor for an elegant dress, and her saddle for a throne. I mean, I hope that day comes, but I feel like, what plot significance does this story battle serve? Because we've already done the primary thing, and we've defeated Dahi, although we technically haven't completely driven out all the Nilfgaardians just yet, so maybe that's all there is to this. But I have this creeping sense of suspicion that something bad is going to happen, possibly to Meve. specifically. Okay, so just one round. I did not expect we'd have... What the heck? Nilfgaardian deserters, lots of these. Once an ally is destroyed, flee the battlefield. Okay, we might have seen these guys before. So if we can destroy you, then theoretically, they get way less power on the board. Lots of Skellige guys. Whole lot of Skellige guys, and Dagger in hand. So we could flay basically all the warriors and immediately sacrifice them in Devon Runestone, and sacrifice all of them and then replay Dagger. Okay. Let's dump Alchemist. Remember, this is only one round. Ballista is also good. Yeah. That does make Skellige guys a little bit less effective, but the Ballista should be very good in this circumstance. And we could use Dragonstream or Tainted Ale to guarantee that we remove one of their cards. That really shouldn't be much of a problem. So I think we can make this work.
Surround them!
Question is just, is there some catch? Some thing that we don't yet know about that is going to happen here that we should be accounting for, that we would like to account for? We're going to use Leader Ability, presumably, and we'll probably get out Patricide and another Ballista, I imagine. I mean, we could do Reynard. We will technically have time to activate his Loyal Ability at least one more time. But I think that it's this early on that doesn't do much for us, so it's probably still better to go Ballista. So let's go get rid of you. And get you and you. Deal a little bit of damage in the process.
Death is only the beginning!
And then for the card we're actually playing directly from hand, we'll make it another Ballista. So do they have anything out of the ordinary they're doing here?
No.
You're gonna get Resilience if we let you stick around. You're the Nilfgaardian champion. We've seen you a bazillion times. Damage enemy by the number of your allied units. Okay. So now we probably go Disgraced Warriors.
Is today the day?
We'll use Divana Runestone on those on our next turn in all likelihood. Then we just take you out immediately. Actually, oh. Should have gone Patricide first, technically. So now this is... Oh, well. Apparently... Destroy any unit, and all the other guys go away. Okay, I assumed that it was only the deserters who that applied to. Oh, technically, did you want to wait in that case? And then you could immediately remove everything?
But what?
But it does seem like, I mean, these guys are very easy to destroy. Which again, I'm just getting suspicious. This is too easy. It's too easy. Also, the resilience doesn't matter if this is only a one-round match. Do technically... we don't need to play Dragonstream just yet, but we will want to at some point. I mean, we might destroy all their units to the point where Dragonstream does absolutely nothing. But if that's the case, then, you know, we'll settle for that. Do that. Power up other Skellige dudes. And now we can just destroy you as well, with damage to spare.
101,
And you.
102,
Same thing.
103.
And we could steal one of them with Muzzle, which technically we should do at some point. So otherwise we're not going to have anything to get with that, and that is still better than outright destroying all the units. So it puts points on our side of the board as well, unless we run out of board space, which we might actually end up doing. Okay, well, we should still do this. This feels like something is up here.
152,
Is
154.
every single card a promising recruit? That just seems silly. And we might need to go Dragonstream now. Not that that's going to make a huge difference when they may have 0 units. But we'll see. But whatever's remaining will probably get destroyed by Dragonstream, unless they have one absolutely humongous card they're going to play at the end. Okay, at least this is a different card than what they had before, which makes me slightly less suspicious that something out of the ordinary is happening here. But we could... Oh, no, but you're also going to flee as soon as something is destroyed. And we don't want to steal you, because we destroy a Disgraced Warrior, and then you flee our battlefield as well. So, I don't know. Let's just keep on playing these guys. At the moment, we'd kind of like to sacrifice them so we get more value when we play Dogger, but it just seems like that's maybe not going to be necessary, given the way things are going here. Or maybe this is just, for narrative reasons, you know, a way of demonstrating how, at this point, we truly just completely overpower Nilfgaard, because they're left in shambles after we defeated Dahi. Maybe that's how we're supposed to interpret this. If we want a Tainted Ale, then technically we'd need to use that pretty soon. Same with Muzzle. As we're saying, Dogger, I mean, yeah, he does get out the Disgraced Warriors, but that's, I guess we go Leader ability and get another Ballista and Reynard out. Sure. Can we get rid of you? I guess. So you don't need to replay Dogger. Okay, technically you should have used that first, but that's not really going to matter. Because
Discipline shall bring us victory.
we already have more than enough damage. Oh. Well, that's unfortunate. Not realized we actually have to use the remaining damage to hit ourselves. But I guess we can do it on some Skellige dudes. And I guess we'll play another Skellige dude. Okay, we will probably destroy you as well, or we could seize you. And we might not sacrifice anything, in which case it does work. We aren't going to have time for Tainted Ale at this point. Again, not that it's really going to matter. Unless they have some ridiculously powerful card they play at the very end. Guess we just do that. I mean, Dragon Stream, unless they play a boss specifically, is going to destroy everything at this point. It would seem. So basically, we're going to play Dogger. We're going to get these guys back out, and then that's going to be that.
Come on, kill me!
Just enough board space. And we do this. Okay, and it is the perfect amount of damage as well. That feels like that can't be a coincidence. Just won't even use this one. So they have 2 cards. That's something different, although it is about to get destroyed. We don't have space for this, not that it really matters. So is this the final battle? Okay, it's not like that's going to change anything. So we definitely win. So is that the whole point, just to emphasize that we're way stronger than Nilfgaard now?
Normally disciplined, determined to an extreme, these Nilfgaardians quickly broke rank and ran.
Deserters! Leaderless, Your Grace.
A scout reported.
Headed south they was, towards the frontier.
Chained prisoners now sat along the dusty road. Meve stopped in front of one. He was ragged and unshaven. Flies had taken an interest in his poorly bandaged hand. Spotting the queen, he lowered his head and quivered with terror.
Is this going to be someone in particular that we know?
I know you take us for savages,
Began Meve, her gaze passing over several scraggy black-clads.
but fear not. We shan't flay you alive nor eat you for dinner. And when a truce is signed, you'll be sent home, where I most sincerely hope you'll stay this time.
As the queen mounted her horse, she barely concealed a grimace. Her thighs were sore and chafed, her hands raw from the reins. But she bit her lip and rode on, for the prize was now very near.
Okay. So I suppose that means we're still going to the castle itself to meet up with Zemavend and find Dahi? What do we have here? Your Majesty, good tidings from the Western Front. The combined forces of Temeria, Kedwin, and Redania, the major northern realms, have soundly defeated the Nilfgaardians at Brenna. the Empire lost nearly 40,000 soldiers, and Marshal Cohorn has vanished without a trace. Army Group Center is in disarray. Yeah, because remember, Dahe was in charge of Army Group East. Everything that we'd heard of was always Army Group East, 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 which presumably meant that there was a center, a west, a north, a south, some other combinations of groups. And apparently, Group Center here is in disarray, and King Foltest, King of Temeria, is forcing the enemy from Temerian lands. The Emperor has expressed readiness for truce negotiations. Victory is close at hand. Your Highness, we deeply regret to inform you that Captain Tobias, who provided us with invaluable information from Nilfgaardian-occupied capital, was unmasked and beheaded after 3 days of intensive torture. While leaving the city, the invaders took with him his family, a wife and 2 children, 12 and 7 years of age. Their fate remains unknown. I'm pretty sure that Captain Tobias was the spy who was writing most of the notes that we had read, most of the reports. And there's the difference between us and the Nilfgaardians. They take prisoners, they kill them, they do whatever it is that they did to these children, and it probably wasn't good. Whereas we say we're going to set them free and let them go back to their homeland. Okay, enemy armies in tatters, fleeing south toward border. Movements chaotic, uncoordinated, suggest no contact with command. Scoia'tael commandos also in retreat, to east towards Dol B'Thana. Without Nilfgaardian support, elves slaughtered by Aedirnians whenever caught. That's true, it's been a while since we encountered any of the elves, but at least in Aedirn, they were a bit of a thorn in our side. Emperor preparing for peace summit. Reports indicate willingness to make far-reaching concessions. Last bastion of enemy resistance, fortress in Aldersburg. Remaining troops guarding it led by General Ardel ep Dahi. He refuses to all calls to capitulate. Okay, so are we gonna have a second final encounter with Dahi? We do have a map. Oh, wow. Okay, it's, well, I mean, it's a lot bigger than I expected it to be. Wow. Okay, I mean, it technically, does it even tell us what, well, we're in Aedirn. I suppose it doesn't need to tell us. But yeah. Okay, I don't exactly know how to interpret that. Does that mean we still have a lot more to do here? It doesn't look like it's as big an area as other sections have been, by any means. But it is still another area. And we are still getting resources, we just did a battle, so it feels like there is still more Thronebreaker to be played here. Your Majesty, a boat used by the Nilfgaardians to haul looted goods has crashed into the span of the bridge. We can attempt to fish out the valuables, but the current is dangerously strong. Our soldiers would be at risk. Well, we probably don't need our soldiers at this point. It's certainly at least not 393 of them. It's worth it. Have them set to work. We must try lose 10 recruits, gain 600 wood. Make an offer to the villagers. We pay them in exchange for fetching the goods. Lose a bunch of gold, gain wood. No time to consider this now. I mean, I think we're okay with doing the sacrifice. Obviously, morally, this is highly questionable, but we know that these little encounters here of that sort tend to have little to no, never have had any consequences, I don't think, narratively. So, I'd like to try to gauge just how much more we have to do here, because, I mean, there might be battles here and here and here. I had assumed that the original Dahe battle in the Castle of Rivia was going to be the final of the entire game, that we just have closing remarks and whatever other loose ends we had to wrap up on the narrative, but apparently that is not the case. Just want to unlock that waypoint. Okay, I think we have.
Was in Aldersburg when it fell. Broke my heart, that did. But not complete. Now we'll take it back.
So, can we... Ooh. Dramatic birds. Can we even get that? Not sure that we can. Unless we can loop around this way. I mean, it's also not clear that we're even going to need these resources. Because we already crafted Meve's additional movement speed. Mostly for the memes and for the flexes. But we didn't actually need that. And at this point, I mean, we could craft the stuff that gives us the option of crafting other types of units. But we haven't done that yet. And, you know, we don't technically expect to need that ever. Hopefully not, at least. What is this? Let's see. My lady, as you can see, the residents of Edirn are giving their every effort to rebuild their ruined homes, yet they lack the proper materials. They ask if you would be willing to trade lumber in exchange for items they've scavenged from nearby battlefields. What shall I tell them? Give them our wood and some of our gold for good measure. Huge price you pay in order to get high morale, which we already have, or it saddens me, but I'm simply unable to help them. I mean, assuming that, once again, there's no actual narrative implication to this, no consequences, then why would we... I mean, this literally gives us nothing. It just throws away resources for no benefit at all. So, assuming that it is the same as every other report, then I think we have to do this. And technically we can come back on a later occasion if we really wanted to, although I'm not sure that we will have any reason to do that. Maybe there is something that's going to lower our morale here. Again, more Edirnian flags. We tried this corner? We have, haven't we? Yeah. Can we chat with these guys? No. Chat with these guys? No.
The good mothers guided you to victory.
Okay. Can chat with you. Oh, that's... So those were all Edirnian flags. That is Kedwin. That flag there. Which we have not seen, basically, any Kedwini presence at all. Only briefly mentioned every once in a while.
Nilfgaard angered the gods. Too much pride in them, not enough humility. The entire North owes you thanks, milady. And you, the gods.
It's just weird, because it feels, part of it, as if the game really wants to end, and in some ways should have already ended, and we didn't need to do all this stuff afterward. On the other hand, it feels like the game is trying to give us a lot of closure by going back to multiple places, or at least this place that we were previously, and see how things have changed since we defeated the Nilfgaardians in Rivia Castle.
The good mothers guided you to victory. The good mothers guided you to victory.
See? A new cemetery, one of many that have appeared in the area. Most of the dead have not been identified, their graves unnamed. Our soldiers have requested that we light candles in their honor. Are you willing to set aside a sum for our coffers for this purpose, Your Grace? And once again, it is basically just a moral decision to be made here, but in terms of actual in-game consequences, it is throwing away money for no benefit at all because we're already on high morale. So although this is pretty cruel, might even be able to come back to that later. We cannot. Okay. Well, if we need high morale, we can go over there. So I don't know if this is going to be the one exception where it actually does matter, but I cannot say for certain. I have to, I think, base the decision off of what we've learned from everything that we have done thus far, and that suggests that resources are really all that matters in that specific report. We are getting tons of resources. I was wondering if there'd be anything over here. This does seem like one of the biggest villages. Any other encounters? Let's see, so we have a letter. The war nears its end, and the Blackclads flee with tails between their legs. The time has come to raise our homeland from the ash and rubble. To those who yet live, take up hammer, saw, and axe. Roll your sleeves and set to work. The nation is building its home. Okay, we can chat with you.
All's left is to drive the Blackclads from Aldersburg, and the war's won.
So yeah, it's strange to me how we had all this buildup around defeating Dahe and retaking Rivia Castle, winning back our homeland. So it's odd how suddenly this just feels like an add-on to the very end that feels less weighty, less important. I mean, not that Edirn isn't important, but it's not our kingdom. We already set out and achieved our primary goal, so this is... I mean, yes, we're doing a favor for Demivind, but that feels like a strange note to end on.
Oh, Demivend's not bad, but he don't hold a candle to Meve. All's left is to drive the Blackclads from Aldersburg, and the war's won.
Yeah, everything seems to suggest that once we do defeat the Nilfgaardians here, then we are truly done, but That seems to suggest that there will still be another battle here. Can we go down this way to Nabu? I guess so. Okay. And it might be at this point that that is the only other actual encounter, battle, or puzzle, anything like that we're going to have from here on out. So there's a question mark here.
Noticed one of her scouts, a certain Corporal Larkin, halt his mount and train his gaze on the woods.
Your Grace, I thought I heard something. Could have sworn. A whisper, maybe, but... nothing now. It's all gone quiet. I think I might have
Ambush?
imagined it, in fact.
Imagined.
Meve placed her hand on his shoulder.
No one has sharper senses than you. If you claim to have heard something, it's worth a closer look.
Okay. I mean, again, this all feels like there must be something else going on here.
Corporal Larkin saluted, then rode past the trees. Suddenly in shadow, he keenly scanned his surroundings. Something caught his attention. He dismounted, then brushed aside ferns, exposing tracks made in the mud.
Your Majesty!
He shouted, quickly turning towards the road.
Sound the alarm! It's Scoia'tael!
An arrow whisked through the
Yup.
air, pierced his throat, and suddenly silenced him. Then
Ambush
the
is
forest
definitely
came
more of a
alive with
Scoia'tael thing.
cries in the Elder tongue. Elves on the attack.
It's so weird. Because for the entire game, it felt like there was an overarching structure that made sense. We were fighting the Nilfgaardians, Dahe was the leader of the Nilfgaardians, and everything that we did was in effort to further that goal. Now it feels like this is just kind of... You know, why are... I feel like I don't have enough reason to care as much about this because we already did the big thing that we were trying to do. So it feels like we're just kind of stretching things on and reducing the impact, reducing the significance of that big battle that we just did. So the battle for naught, and all these things are also saying that these are battles that we can easily overwhelm our opponent. Which again, kind of reinforces that now we're way stronger than we were before, which, yeah, I mean, I get it, but you could just tell me that. You don't necessarily need to do all this just to show me. Meve cursed under her breath. Did Scoia'tael hatred know no bounds? The war had already been lost. Nilfgaard, who had supported their cause against the northern kingdoms, had retreated beyond the Yaruga. By attacking the Queen's army, the elves must have known there stood nothing to gain. That is, other than the heads of enemy Dwan. It's a story battle, just one round. And maybe it's similar to the Nilfgaardian battle that we just had, where we can just coast on through here. But that remains to be seen. Before we start picking stuff, no units on the board. Damage enemy by 5, and its adjacent units by 2, cooldown 3. This is something that they... Pretty sure they had that ability several times back in Edirne, but it has been so long since we last fought any elves, because I'm not sure we've seen any since then. But we can go Ballistas early. Dogger, again, is in a one-round match, not a huge deal. Don't really think we need the Infiltrator all that much, nor do we really need the Alchemist, nor do we really need the other Alchemist. More Skellige guys is... I mean, yeah, we can sacrifice you and we can use you for Divana Runestone. And then that gives us some value from Dogger, I suppose. Tainted Ale, as we saw in the previous match, maybe is not really all that necessary on this occasion. Getting another Ballista instead, sure. Now we have ridiculous damage. So I think we just go for this.
2 arms!
It's a trap!
Special prize. Just for you, love.
Every 2 turns, turn start, summon a random elf from your deck. Okay. So we just try to remove you as soon as possible. I think we should be able to do fairly efficiently. We dump you. I mean, once upon a time, these Scoia'tael guys gave us a ton of trouble. We probably want to get Patricide, and we should probably get another one of you.
Wanna know why I've got my scar?
For a personal invitation.
But Scoia'tael tended to be very damage-oriented, and we have the Skellige guys who like taking damage. So maybe that won't be a big concern, and, you know, a lot has changed with our deck since we last faced the Scoia'tael peoples. Damage unit by 2, if it was already boosted, damage it by 6 instead. Yeah, because we were more of a boosting deck at that point in time. Now we're more of a damaging deck, which I think is a much better matchup on this occasion. Let's get more Ballistae down here. Because the Seal guys, especially in a one-round match, not nearly as time-sensitive. We can do this to destroy you. And then we just use one of you to destroy that. And it is a similar situation to what we had against the previous Nilfgaardian opponents. Because we can just get more of these down here. We only need one of them to take out your units.
May your sword and arm be one.
Destroy a damaged unit. I remember that. I remember that being a concerning card. Did cause us a fair bit of trouble once upon a time, I believe. It's gonna be a little bit tough to damage you perfectly here, I think. Because we're gonna deal 6 damage. Add 1 on top of that, and you're dropping down to 1, which means we're gonna have extra damage here. So we're gonna have to hit ourselves a bit. Probably don't use Patricide, and at least we're not hitting ourselves quite as much in that case. Actually, it's the same amount, because you're gonna get destroyed in one instance in this order anyway. But I guess you just play another warrior to take some of that damage. Like that.
None shall tread on us.
Okay, well, every other elf is already destroyed. So in the past, we didn't have enough damage to remove the other elves quickly enough, and therefore this neophyte became a bit of an issue, but when it's only you, should not have much trouble dealing with that. Once again, it's going to be a little bit awkward on the amount of damage that we have, and we could also just steal you. Technically, if we wanted to use Dragon Stream, we'd probably need to use a blade on that turn, but again, it shouldn't really be a problem. So I think the whole point here is to reinforce just how powerful we are now.
Now we will see who is weak.
You. Technically, we could steal you. And even if we sacrifice a Disgraced Warrior, you do still get stronger on our side, because it's any non-elf unit. Not that that's all that important, but we've yet to play Divana Runestone, so technically there's some potential there, I suppose.
Oh my.
Oh my. It's been a while since you used that. Technically that will make you stronger, so thanks. I kind of completely forgot about their leader ability. We do have our leader ability back, not that that's going to matter much either. Yeah, I mean, I think we just kind of zoom through this at this point. Do that, that should make you a lot bigger. Then we can do that, and actually we do have perfect damage on this occasion. Then what? We could put you back, I guess. But honestly, I think we're fine here.
The storm is coming. Let's enjoy the weather while we still can.
Damage adjacent units by 6 if they were destroyed, moved to the other side of the battlefield. I remember this card. It's a bit of a trip down memory lane as well, I suppose. That's definitely not going to destroy any of our cards. In fact, we could even destroy this. Although, yeah, we can. That's only an enemy unit. The Ballista, at least, can destroy you. Or we could put you back. Here's what we do. Thank you for the card. Now we'll use our leader ability. And, you know, we'll... could play it. No, we'll, I guess we'll do Reynard. Not that he matters all that much at this stage.
Company, forward march!
Oh, we still haven't played anything from her hand.
Don't need no weapon.
We probably could have passed on, like,
I was hoping you'd say that.
turn, I don't know, 4 and still won, but if you play an elf, boost adjacent units by 2. Alright, well, we can definitely take you out perfectly. And sure, we'll play Dogger. We just probably won't even have room for Dragon Stream, and that is fine. So we should not need it. Once again, oh no, we do have room for it, technically speaking, now that we have time for it. Thank you. Oh, we got rid of all their units, so they had no choice but to boost us. That's pretty hilarious. Alright, so yeah, we definitely don't need Dragonstream.
Renna, stop! We surrender!
Everyone's surrendering, retreating.
The Scoia'tael fighters stood no chance against Meve. When the sounds of battle finally ceased, the Queen, victorious, tossed aside her arrow-studded shield. She then ordered the commando's leader brought before her. She'd expected a ranter who would turn up his nose, spit in her face, and cry, "Death to all Dwan." But the bloodied elf before her was no arrogant firebrand. He averted his gaze, and his lips gently trembled.
Oh?
Youthful you look, elf. How many summers to you? 30? More?
I feel like I've seen the art for this elf before, and I'm not sure why. It almost looks like Eldain, but no, obviously it's not.
27, my lady.
This is a very young elf.
27. A wonderful age. A shame to die so young.
I beg you, Renna. For mercy, I ask. If not for me, then at the least for...
Like, Elf is his name, and he has the sigil that's just, that's actually the Scoia'tael sign, at least in multiplayer Gwent.
Mercy? You jest. You wait in ambush, come at us like bandits, and now you dare ask for mercy.
This is interesting, though, because Meve was pretty merciful when it came to the Nilfgaardians that we fought not long ago, and you'd think that, if anything, those would be the people that Meve would be least forgiving of. But now, the Scoia'tael, who were mostly just accomplices to the Nilfgaardians, which maybe is not as harsh of a crime, but yes, they did go out of their way to ambush and kill at least one of our troops, or our soldiers, but it still feels like maybe we're overreacting on this occasion. It seems so weird that Meve is so much more critical of these Scoia'tael units than she was of the Nilfgaardians.
It was no ambush.
Oh? What was it then?
Don't play me for a fool. I know what I saw, and I'm no stranger to warcraft.
It's not you we wish to fight. Sverre.
Hmm?
Then who killed Corporal Larkin, Werebubs?
What's a werebub?
When we saw you on the high road, we fell back and hid in the wood. We wanted you to pass.
Sure.
Your scout's hearing, very keen. He heard something, then spotted our tracks. You must understand. We had no choice.
What, to attack us? You could have surrendered. Yeah, what? You had no choice? So you just killed everyone? Or you tried to kill us?
You know you might have surrendered.
Like Dristan's commando. Is that what you mean? They laid down their arms before an Edirnian general, who ordered them hanged. One and all.
Okay. It doesn't excuse the crime that you committed. You attempted murder. You did commit murder. We might not have punished you before, but now you're asking for some kind of punishment.
If we're to die, we prefer to die bows and swords in hand.
Alright. I guess there's that.
Why are you here? Were you to rescue Epdahi?
Rescue someone? No, Renna. We flee.
Hmm?
The Nilfgaardians have realized they'll lose the war and have renounced us. Without their support, we stand no chance.
Okay. That is consistent with what we've already heard.
Demavend has loosed his hounds. They hunt our units one by one. He's offered 50 gold pieces for the head of each Scoia'tael. It's the same in Temeria and Kedwen, if not worse.
That's pretty harsh. From the other northern realms.
We wished to join with Yorveth's unit, flee together as far as we could. It was our last hope.
There's a Witcher 2 reference of sorts with Yorveth.
Why do you tell me all this?
Because you listen still. You've not ordered me killed, so you've clearly a heart. Eseth Aina Edu. I beg you, so few of us remain, all tired, all wounded. We pose no threat. Let us leave your realm. Let us flee.
Very well, you may go. I shall hand you over to Demavend. I mean, it's a really, really stupid decision to attack us. and then expect us to show mercy afterward. Plead, beg for mercy. You're like, oh, we'd rather die with our bows and arrows and swords in hand because we want an honorable death, and then you come here and try to beg to us? It's a little hypocritical. And by little hypocritical, I mean it is humongous hypocrisy we're talking about here. So in that sense, you could say, maybe, all right, you tried, buddy, but you failed miserably. Not going to show you mercy. We're handing you over to Demavend, who we've learned is not going to be merciful to you. Or we say, all right, you claim to be good people, good elves, and that it was all a misunderstanding and you had no choice. Even if it's a terrible excuse, we'll still try to be the better person here. Which, all right, I guess we'll do that. And I guess, will this have implications when it comes to our relationship with Demavend? I don't know, is he gonna hear of this? I imagine he'll somehow find a way to figure this out. And, do we care more about Demavend, or do we care more about a random group of Scoia'tael? I mean, I guess the Scoia'tael as a whole versus Aedirn as a whole. Aedirn is our neighbor and currently our ally in the Northern Realms, whereas the Scoia'tael are not, or they're kind of sort of our neighbor in that they're not really, they're a little bit everywhere. But are they really going to completely switch sides and help us? I don't know. I mean, if we're considering pandering toward the Scoia'tael versus pandering toward Demavend, I feel like pandering toward Demavend is more likely to pay off. So I guess we're doing that. Even if yeah, I guess.
I don't rule these lands.
And it does say that is going to be an important decision.
To judge you, not me.
So yeah, basically that's what I base the decision on. Support Aedirn or support the Scoia'tael. So I think it's less likely the Scoia'tael would actually completely do a 180 and assist us out of nowhere.
Deliver us to him and you know what fate awaits us.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were a complete idiot, and I almost was about to excuse you. If not for, how it might jeopardize our relationship, our alliance with the Aedirnians.
I do. But I know not what fate we face if I release you.
Right, exactly.
Perhaps you'd leave in peace. Or perhaps another would stumble across your path and, like you did Corporal Larkin, you would have to kill them too. A risk I'm not willing to take.
Right, I mean, he just shot himself in the foot in so many ways, both metaphorically and, well, yeah, you know what I mean. It's like, we have no reason to trust you after you have done that, even if you try to wordsmith your way out of it.
So, death for us all is the lesser evil here.
Oh, if given the choice between evil, lesser, greater, I'd rather not choose at all. I mean, you're trying to take the moral high ground here. Your whole point was that you would rather die than negotiate with us. And now you're taking issue with dying. So, I mean, come on, buddy. You're even more of a hypocrite now.
He gave no reply. His eyes downcast, the elf nodded, then lifted his arms to be chained. Meve sent the Scoia'tael to Demavend. What became of them, you ask? The end of their story's not hard to surmise.
Understandable. We predicted that might be the case. Oh, music switches. But at the same time, we prioritize the support of Aedirn over the support of the Scoia'tael, which I think is at least the safe bet to make. What is this? Some resources, then Master Nilfgaardians. The time when you could demand, require, and expect has come to an end. My payment is non-negotiable. Not the amounts, nor the currency. Your florins are now worth less than Sidarian coppers. I give you until tomorrow. After that, safe passage to the border will no longer be possible due to Queen Meve's approach from the south. X. Not sure who X is. I can only think of one person we know of whose name starts with X, and it wasn't actually his real name. That being Xavier, of course. Yeah, imagine we might have another encounter here. But, I mean, we're getting very close to the very end. Is there anything we do? Down below here, that seems like it's all fenced off. Yeah. Okay. Harmelin, I mean, that's not necessarily the place we're looking for just yet. Okay.
First foundations, hoist the walls, then we'll revel in its halls. Everyone's doing their part to rebuild the homeland. Everyone's doing their part to rebuild the homeland.
I mean, seems like positive stuff for the most part. And then this seems like the final place, one would imagine, and as per usual, there's fast travel spot right in front of it. So I still really don't know what to expect here. Is this going to be another full-fledged battle? 3 rounds, as difficult and dramatic as the one that we just had against Lyria and Rivia? Because that, for the entire game, was built up to be the climax, and then here we are after the fact, and we're going to have a part 2 to that? Or is this more of an afterthought along the lines of what we had against the other Nilfgaardians and Scoia'tael enemies? Have another letter? Translated from Elder Speech. Fangil, Nilfgaard has betrayed us. They've told the Nordlings our positions, exposed all our hideouts. The peace treaty will contain no guarantee of amnesty for those surrendering arms. You know what that means. We must flee the Northern Realms. Take your entire commando to the agreed-upon location as fast as you can. I will wait a week, then move east. Yorveth, the leader of the entire Scoia'tael. Interesting. I think there is an achievement for reading all of the notes in the game, and if we are truly getting close to the end, then I would have expected that to potentially be the final note. Oh, what do we have here? Everyone has something to say to us. Okay, maybe we start with Patricide and then we work our way up to Gascon and Reynard, who are probably more critically important.
Huh? What is it now?
At least to the narrative, although to the success of our team, the Skellige guys, of course, are number 1.
The war nears its end.
Sadly,
Sadly, why?
I survived. Again. Rebuild your land, Queen. Enjoy your life. Me and my men, we'll be moving on.
Hopefully not anytime soon. Not until the actual war is over. This was specifically once the war is over, right?
Arnulf, in Lyria and Rivia, your past matters not. Nor does your shame. Stay.
What about after? What do I tell my ancestors when the time comes? I yearn to sit at their table, lass, and drink mead in their company, so go I must.
Okay, I mean,
So long, Arnulf.
he seems to insist. Gascon?
Hey ho, how's my favorite queen in the north?
What will you do when the war ends? Seems as though that's probably going to be the question for everyone.
So, what awaits you now? What will you do?
I mean, remember, long time ago at the very beginning of the game, Gascon was a criminal, and he rescued us from the Lyrian prison, and then, of course, the rest is history. But is he going to return to a life of crime, or has he changed his ways?
Been contemplating it of late. Thought I might go back to the life of an outlaw. Not that I'd expect you to approve.
You're quite right, I wouldn't. It's why I wish to make certain you'll not feel tempted.
Oh? Perhaps Meve will give him an offer he cannot refuse?
Gascon, I hereby bestow upon you a number of estates near Scala.
Oh.
What? Meve? Damn it, I don't know what to say.
Ha! A first?
Yeah, and the first time he's spoken in that tone either.
Thank you, Meve. 1,000 thanks.
It sounds totally different.
'Tis I who should thank you. With all my heart.
But I mean, absolutely true. We could not have gotten anywhere near as far as we did without the support of Gascon, at least from a narrative standpoint. Early on, he was important from a gameplay standpoint as well, although we certainly started to work him out of the deck once we got more powerful heroes like Patricide.
It's time I attended to other matters. Farewell.
What about for Reynard?
Your Grace, I wished once more to express my gratitude for your show of mercy.
Not towards the Scoia'tael just then, but on some other occasion?
I showed mercy, true, but felt much more. Anger, pain, now resentment. You hurt me, Reynard. Wounded me to the bloody core. I don't know what else to say on the matter, so let's not speak of it.
Oh, this is mercy when Meve found out that Reynard was kinda, sorta spying, or at least conversing with Willem, even when he was obviously working with the Nilfgaardians.
As you wish, Your Grace.
Oh, that was... okay, entirely separate.
The war nears its end. What next for Reynard Odo?
Whatever you command, Your Grace.
Ugh.
Is something amiss, my lady?
I mean, if we gave Gascon a whole bunch of estates, surely we can at least promote Reynard, if nothing else. Whoa! Hold on. Okay, that's not the direction that I expected this to go in. Yes, Reynard has certainly been very loyal to us outside of the whole part where he was kind of conversing with our son who had betrayed us thing. But, yeah, maybe at times there's a little bit of romantic tension building, but I wasn't really trying to read into that too much or build that up too much. So we don't really know much about Meve's husband, who is now dead, but that's pretty much all we do know. Only briefly was he mentioned in the past, and never really in any great detail. So don't really have the context to understand what Meve's situation is, and I don't really feel comfortable going in this direction here. And Reynard is his own man. He doesn't need Meve to make him feel like he has done amazing things to help us succeed in the fight against the Nilfgaardians. I mean, what I would like to do, again, is basically, what is his official title? Is he Sir Reynard Odo, just a knight? Or is he Captain Reynard Odo? Basically, promote this guy. Possibly a lot.
It's nothing, Reynard. Unimportant. It's time I attended to other matters.
So yeah, call me crazy, but this just doesn't seem like the appropriate time to be making romantic advances on our second in command. Okay. Oh, but we can also... we really wanted to... I thought there was an achievement for crafting everything in the game. At least at the workshop, I guess. And for a while, it seemed like that would just be mathematically impossible because we wouldn't have enough resources, and I'm still feeling like that might be the case. But, I don't know, maybe if we at least do this. I don't know if that does it. Because this stuff is pretty darn expensive, and I don't remember specifically how the achievement is phrased. Maybe I'm completely misremembering it and misrepresenting it. But, yeah, you know, maybe we just leave it at that in that case. So, like, King Debevin's camp? Okay, so it's technically not the castle just yet, but this is still where the main quest has taken us. Do we know who this... this almost looks like Order of the Flaming Rose, practically.
Side by side, we'll kick those black-clads across the Yaruga.
I mean, it might be Aedirnian colors. It's a little bit hard to tell when he's facing that way. It is the colors. I'm just not sure if the armor... it's also, like, somewhat similar to Order of the Flaming Rose colors.
Long live Eden! Long live Rivia! Long live Hyrule! Lyria!
What? Excuse me. Now, I've actually never played a Zelda game before. But I'm pretty sure that there was a Zelda reference there.
Long live Eden! Long live Rivia! Long live Hyrule!
Clever. clever little thing to mix in there, and we do see the siege engines doing their thing as well. Bunch of Edirnian colors here. What is this the... Yeah, that is the quest there. So maybe we just double check. Is there anyone else or anything else to interact with here? Doesn't seem like it. Okay. I think we do it. I think we probably do it.
The Lyrian Corps neared Aldersburg.
Deja vu.
And it could not have been on a more idyllic day. The sun shone, birds sang, trees rustled in a light breeze. But Meve saw it as she had at the war's start. Walls illumined by a fire's glow, the cries of fleeing civilians, the stench of burning flesh. As on that day, Aldersburg was under siege. Yet this time, Eden's flags fluttered in the field, while Nilfgaard's tattered sons crowned the fort's towers. The Queen found Demavend's tent without difficulty. Made of sheets of silk edged with silver thread, it positively shone.
Seems the realm's restored to a virtuous path,
muttered Meve.
Yeah. That is one thing that is kind of surprising to me, is just when we were in Edirn previously, not only were the Nilfgaardians winning the fight against the Edirnians, Edirn as a whole just looked completely just decimated and completely poor. And so for them to not only be suddenly winning the war, but to have all of these well-organized soldiers together and siege engines all working properly, none of that stuff would have seemed possible back then. It seemed like that would have taken years for the Eternians to get back to that stage. So feels a little bit odd that they were able to make this dramatic of a turnaround this quickly. Yes, I know, once again, the game is trying to reinforce how, because you defeated Dahi at the Rivia Castle, much has changed, but if we're being a little more realistic here, that just seems very infeasible, at least on the Edirnians' part here.
Aha! There she is! Queen Meve, savior of the North, the Sun Slayer.
That is kind of a cool title, though.
Mockery I don't appreciate.
Even if it was in mockery.
I wouldn't dare. Not my words, those. You've been painted thus in song. Master Dandelion himself wrote a ballad.
Oh dear.
The battle for the
Dandelion.
If you take the bard at his word, you're as fierce with a blade as any witcher.
Wait, was Dandelion... He did make an appearance, didn't he? In that brief battle for the bridge in which we saw Geralt and Cahir show up? I think we didn't... I forget exactly. We had a card for Dandelion that wasn't actually a unit. It, summoned Geralt and Cahir, or powered them up, or something like that.
Is that jealousy I hear?
To be perfectly honest, Meve, it is. For I hadn't the pluck, nor resolve. And when all the North tucked tail, went to shite, you alone stepped up and bared your fangs. Let it be a lesson for the future to us all.
It is true. I mean, Demavend didn't exactly do the best of work to fight off the Nilfgaardians. We didn't really hear anything from Foltest and Temeria. Well, we didn't see anything from Foltest or Temeria. And we occasionally saw some notes that referred to what was happening there. But I suppose right around this time, there were things happening in the games, Witcher 1 and 2, specifically Temeria. So maybe that's why Thronebreaker probably deliberately avoids those areas altogether. Let's see. And your son, how is he? Yeah, so this moves on with the main narrative, but this is a side conversation. We should do this first.
You called out the future. Tell me, how's your son?
Baldwin. Oh, growing like a weed he is. And the spitting image of his old man.
And we rescued that son, right? That is one of the things that we did for Demavend when we last saw him.
Good news all, especially given the mother's profession.
And it was... Oh. God's fired me. Yeah, wasn't it technically the son of a mistress that Demavend had, and so it was kind of a controversial, you know, it was not really, you know, a planned pregnancy, if you will.
She's now Countess Demeretta of Gullet, a lady of the court.
But now she is, like, I think she might have been a lady of the night, so to speak. But now she's been promoted. She's been turned to a noble, a lady of the court.
Ooh, your lawful wife must be thrilled.
Oh, right. Yeah, you know, it was his mistress, so it wasn't his wife.
Hard to say in truth. I've not seen her in some time.
Oh.
Duty keeps me away, you understand.
Well, that's awkward.
You work hard, I'm certain. Many a night, too.
Meve, so pointed with her remarks.
You might say so indeed. But enough about me. As we're chirping away like two gossips in the field, do tell me, what a villain.
Yeah, that's... I'd rather not talk about that.
Perished in the assault on Rivia Castle.
Oh my. Fighting for which side?
Good question. Well, question that is maybe a little too much information, or, you know, you're probing a little too much here. Fortunately, however, it is a good answer.
The right one. Demavend, the wound is fresh, the pain immense. I'd rather we not speak of it.
Okay.
A lesson for the future? What do you mean?
My dear, this war won't change a bloody thing, you know. Nilfgaard will be Nilfgaard, the North, the North.
Hopefully, things can change. Of course, as Thronebreaker, I'm pretty sure happens before The Witcher 3, we kind of do still know what's going to happen later on.
We'll sign a truce. The Blackclads will turn tail towards home. But the old borders don't satisfy a soul.
I'm perfectly satisfied with them, thank you. And I just wish other folk would respect them too.
Meve. You're one hell of a warrior. But you're no strategist at all. Your perspective, you've got to broaden it. Nilfgaard, we cannot allow it to regain strength and spirit. Else we'll face another invasion within a decade or two.
I mean, let's be honest, he's not wrong.
Measures are required. Preventive, preemptive, whatever the learned call it. Build an army, a vast one. Wait in ambush. And when they least expect it, break their bloody spine. Just think if we were to join forces.
Enough. I don't wish to hear it. Won't even entertain the thought. I'll help you take Aldersburg, but then I'll go home, where, God's willing, I'll live to a ripe old age.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Demavend is not looking to go in that direction.
As you wish. We can mount the assault at any time, but... My scouts report a small Nilfgaardian force approaching from the south. They've stayed off the roads, moved only under the cover of night, escorting someone.
Oh? Dahi? Or someone else?
Who?
I've no notion. Could be a mage. Devilishly unpredictable, that lot. Could wreak havoc in our ranks. Either way, before we rush at the walls, we must make certain they don't reach Aldersburg at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's either Dahi or I would think some other major character from the franchise that we might not have seen yet. A mage makes me think Yennefer? Could Yennefer make a cameo appearance here?
I shall see to it.
Are you sure? You've just arrived. Must be weary after the long journey.
I mean, she is Yennefer of Vengerberg, which I believe is in Eddern, so might be something to that. She also does have some ties to the Nilfgaardians as well.
An understatement if I ever heard one. But I wish all this to be over, quickly.
Meve set out after the Nilfgaardians immediately, a cavalry escort in tow. Her unmatched scouts, who had led the army through the mountains of Mahakam and Angren swamps, quickly found the enemy's trail.
This way, Your Grace.
It's not far now.
That very same day, Meve's force caught up to the mysterious black-clad unit. Lyrian riders surrounded the foe, forcing the Nilfgaardians to halt. All fell so quiet, the creaking of taut Lyrian bowstrings could be discerned.
What is this all about?
The common tongue. Which of you knows it?
I do, Your Majesty.
Caldwin? I don't recognize the name.
You also know who you deal with, I see. What is your name?
Other than that, it is really similar to Caldwell, but I assume there's no relation.
Caldwin, Your Majesty.
At last, a Nilfgaardian name I can pronounce. So, Caldwin, it seems this war will reach its end in 2 days' time at the most. 'Twould be silly to die today, wouldn't you agree?
It would, milady.
Precisely. I've spilled enough blood. I've lost the appetite for more. So, provided you don't give me a good reason to kill you, you'll walk away with your lives.
Okay.
Now tell me. You carry something for General Ebdahi. What is it?
A letter.
Of what kind?
Urgent to the point of insanity, it must be. Who wrote it? The dear Madam Ebdahi?
No, Your Majesty. The Emperor.
Ah, okay.
My. A letter from Emir himself. You must be an important person. A noble, or... Yet your uniform is simple, with no discernible distinctions. Who are you truly, Caldwin?
Yeah. Something doesn't add up here.
A simple messenger, Your Majesty.
I think... that's unlikely.
Don't lie. I know messengers, how they travel. Alone, armorless, atop a swift steed. You're escorted by cavalry of the heavy sort.
Definitely. That guy is, it's a lot of armor he's wearing.
For I often carry orders the recipients don't wish to perform, thus the escort.
That's not a very good explanation.
Give me the letter.
I've sworn to deliver it to General Ebdahi, or to die in the quest to do so.
So we're gonna have to fight you?
Oh, very well. My translator shall read this letter, then return it to you. You shall break no vow, and who knows, you might even survive.
And if I refuse?
Then we'll murder you.
Guess.
So be it. I accept your offer.
Meve's translator cracked the seal and read. And as he read, his eyes grew wide as saucers. Then he whispered in the Queen's ear.
Truly, and you're certain you're not mistaken. The wonders of this world.
What does it say?
Caldwin, consider this your lucky day. I allow you to complete your mission, with one proviso.
Oh?
And that is?
That when you hand him the letter, you will give the General my regards.
Oh?
As Caldwin and escort set off towards Aldersburg, the Lyrian soldiers looked at their queen with disbelief. To leave a Nilfgaardian to fulfill a secretive task. Meve failed to stifle a rather mean laugh. They'll understand tomorrow, she thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a very secretive task anymore, now that we know what that letter says, but... still odd, and I have to imagine at some point we'll learn what that note said.
General Ebdahi had prefaced Lyria's and Rivia's invasion with a series of arrogant demands. The Nilfgaardian had been impudent, as he had felt sure he'd achieve a quick and decisive victory. Yet several months on, he too received an ultimatum. One signed by Emperor Emir var Emreis himself. The missive was concise and left no room for interpretation. With General Ebdahi dead, the Nilfgaardian army descended
Leaders of the Northern
chaos.
Realms here.
The kings of the north, united, took advantage and struck at the foe. Their victory was complete. The Nordling forces cheered their commanders and monarchs, but for none so vehemently as the one queen among them. Many dream of achieving the impossible. Meve had done it. through wit, determination, and boldness, she had thwarted the Nilfgaardian invasion. The Queen would rule for many more years, stern, yet ever just.
Ah! So a lass saved the North from the Blackclads?
That is one way to put it.
Well, I'll be damned. And a chap, she find herself one in the end?
Leave it be. Bloke's been spinning the tale all night. Story's done. Time we got some shut-eye.
Yes. Particularly as we've yet a long road before us.
Phew. Throat must be parched as old leather after all that. Except, I'm itching to know what happened to the lot of them. Reynard, Gascon.
Ah, very well. Whom shall we start with? Willem? A pawn, a tool in others' hands. Most, if not all, had seen him thus. Yet in the end, he proved his worth soundly. Though he'd started the war a traitor, he perished in the fray, a hero, and would be remembered as such. Having settled in Rivia, Gascon embarked on a life worthy of his new title. In doublet and ruff, he looked to his ample fields and livestock in daytime, attended banquets and feasts come the eve. And then one night, he grabbed his bow and quiver, saddled his favorite mount, and disappeared without a trace. Though Nilfgaard owed its defeat chiefly to Meve, in the Empire her name was uttered with utmost respect. Returning soldiers spoke in awed tones of her courage and generosity, referring to her as Gvedin, the tenacious one. Once the Scoia'tael had withdrawn from the northern realms, non-rebel elves and dwarves emerged from the woods. Though they returned to their homes in human communities, they lived in fear of their neighbors.
Understandable given what we did.
That the next massacre would eventually come.
On a few occasions, really.
As I said, she ruled with an iron hand, not fist. Ever alone, ever strong, dousing dissent with commanding gestures. She was beloved, I've no doubt. Yet her subjects always breathed easier when her gaze moved on from them to someone else. And now, if you'd allow me...
Course. Leave him be, lads. Let him get some rest. Till the time comes for the next tale.
All right. And there it is. The end of Thronebreaker. We have done it. We have completed the game without having crafted any units, gone in completely blind, mission accomplished. And as for my thoughts on Thronebreaker, overall, great game. It did a fantastic job of weaving a narrative and having compelling characters with fantastic dialogue. So rarely did it feel like, we had statements from characters that broke character, or when they did, it was because they were having some kind of significant character development. And generally, I would say the game did a very good job with the whole difficult decisions that have implications for the narrative and gameplay going forward. Every once in a while, there were a few exceptions to that, and those were the parts that, of course, that when they were significant, like, say, with Isbel, those are the ones that I tended to take issue with because they, of course, had pretty significant implications on the game. But, of course, it is very difficult to weave a narrative and a storyline, a game that adapts to the player's decisions to the extent that Thronebreaker does. There are very few games that can do it more effectively than we saw here, and perhaps the Witcher series is one of those few instances, but impressive that for Thronebreaker, a game that I think a lot of people just don't realize exists, and fewer still who realize how good it is, a lot of people probably don't realize just how well Thronebreaker does all that. Now, as for the more nitpicky things that I wasn't as big a fan of, there were some encounters that got a little bit repetitive. Felt like, enemies that were nearly identical. Take Rivia, for example, where it seemed like we had a bunch of Nilfgaardian enemies that had the same leader ability, very similar decks with most of the same cards. In some cases, I don't know, might have even been identical. Kind of felt like it. And then even the hardest difficulty, which I'm pretty sure we were on that entire time. Obviously, we had to go through our own challenge by not crafting any units and by going in blind, not ever checking to see other playthroughs or things like that to give ourselves the inside information about how best to complete certain encounters. We had to do all that stuff to make the game a little bit more difficult. I mean, we didn't have to, but to spice things up a little bit. And so if you weren't doing that, then maybe you could make the case that Thronebreaker is just a little bit too easy, and therefore you can just waltz on through, and the gameplay aspects are not as compelling for that reason. But that wasn't as much of an issue for us because we were getting by the skin of our teeth on a few occasions, especially after having lost several of our heroes at the worst possible times for that to happen. But overall, I would say really good game. I'd highly recommend it to, I mean, anyone who certainly plays Gwent or any of the Witcher games. The story that Thronebreaker tells is one that does tie into a lot of the things that we learn about, hear about, see, and experience in the Witcher trilogy, just from a different perspective and areas that we don't hear nearly as much about. Might even recommend Thronebreaker to people who are, in general, visual novel fans. I mean, yes, we mostly came at this from the angle of having played Gwent, but if you're just into really well-written stories that adapt to what the player chooses to do, then Thronebreaker, as I said, with a few exceptions, does a really good job at that. As for what comes next, well, of course, I have played the Witcher trilogy, so if you're interested in seeing some more Witcher stuff, then you can check that out. We're also doing Gwent multiplayer stuff, so if you're interested in seeing more of the card-specific things, then you can also check a bunch of multiplayer Gwent things out as well. Also, some Rogue Mage. We did a fair bit of that. Technically, we didn't complete the game 100%, but we did a whole lot of that too. And that is, in some ways, as I kind of alluded to earlier, I suppose you could say, almost like the sequel of sorts to Thronebreaker, because I think that it was originally planned for there to be a sequel to Thronebreaker that was in this same style, but it was just too expensive and time-consuming for CDPR, the developers, to create the original Thronebreaker. They couldn't really repeat it for a second time around, unfortunately, because I think if they were to put the same kind of time and effort into a second Thronebreaker, then it could be a really good game. So we've done a whole bunch of games that have similar either Witcher aspects or card aspects, Gwent aspects to them. So if you're interested in seeing more stuff that we've done on this channel, we have playlists for all those things I just mentioned. And if you're interested more in the story aspect and decisions that have consequences later on in a big game, then we're also doing, or have done, a whole bunch of Mass Effect, which in many ways I kind of see as the closest thing to sci-fi The Witcher, you know, The Witcher in space, The Witcher in the future. So if you have not seen Mass Effect before, then you can definitely check that out as well, because that is actually my favorite game, Mass Effect. But other than that, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the series. Obviously, this took us a very long time to complete. So if anyone did watch the series from beginning, middle to end, definitely let me know. And thank you for that, because, oh man, that was a pretty serious time commitment. But it seems like we are truly finally done, even after the game maybe stretched on a little bit longer than I expected. I suppose maybe we'll close out the credits to see if there's anything else that pops up here at the very end. But otherwise, oh man. Oh man. Yeah, now the game's just gonna rub in how, yep, it took us a very long time to finish it. And I mean, I assume that this is the maximum number of quests and battles, except for maybe there might be some edge cases where if we had chosen slightly different decisions at some point in the game, then maybe that would have opened up additional opportunities. We did find all the gold chests, so that's good stuff. Crates found, I mean, there were definitely some that were just completely inaccessible, seemingly. So we definitely didn't get all those, so we got a whole lot of them. Recruits conscripted, 27. Shrines illuminated, 13. So this is the number of times we clicked on the banners that give us recruits. But we did not craft any units. We did not craft any units. So I think with that, that will take us back to the main menu. And with that, that concludes our Thronebreaker playthrough. So thank you all again for watching. Hope you enjoyed the series. And I'll catch you next time.